This is a dream come true for me. Being able to have just a few days to hang with Derek Sivers was nothing short of amazing. But it's also really cool that he brought 2 microphones, which means I get to share this with you today. And he's very thankfully helped me from afar from some emails that we've had back and forth. But earlier this year, I got to be at a private mastermind where Derek came in and spoke at. We had dinner together, we had a few coffees together, and thankfully it turned into a friendship. But what's cool is what I'm about to share with you is where I flew to New Zealand to spend a few days with Derek. And what we have is a 2-parter. This is where I get to actually sit down with Derek in a quiet cafe in a museum and get to talk about all the things that interest us. And selfishly, I had questions whereby I wanted Derek's advice. So with over 7 hours of recording where we did so many things and able to cover so much, and a bit of it we actually have to bleep or cut out just for confidentiality and privacy reasons. However, we have 2 fantastic episodes where we dive into so much. Now, if you're with me on YouTube, there is no video of us. We had 2 mics, which I think actually really adds to the feeling of you being able to sit down and join us in this conversation through all of the good stuff. And I really hope you enjoyed this episode, just a fraction compared to even how much I enjoyed this.
The story behind it was he had this little part.
The lockbox, the security box.
The security box.
joke box.
Literally, yeah, his joke was like, if you say the words,
They're
there's
written.
plenty, like you guys will be all right sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what's my joke book?
Yeah.
And I found it really interesting trying to distill everything down to simplicity, because I think some, not all, of your genius is simplicity at the end of the day.
Thank you.
How do you get to the essence and the core of what something, and the time, it's that simplicity, that distilling down of that core essence, I just found so interesting.
As I was finishing Useful Not True, I read a couple chapters to a friend of mine, and she said, "You know what I love about that?" She said, I wanted you to say more. I wanted you to explain more. You left it was so short. It was only 23 sentences. I wanted you to say, well, and then what? But she said, but then because I wanted you to do that, I found that I was filling in the gaps in my head. So it's just like, he didn't give examples of that, so I'm going to have to give examples to myself. I went, yes. So I think sometimes the succinctness means not trying to fill in every gap. It's just like, just trust that the person reading it is going to fill in the
For
gaps.
myself, I feel like too much, and this was me reflecting upon myself, and I think it's a bit of a cultural thing as well, where there's too much of a prescription culture we live in. It's too much like, give me the 7 steps to X. And I just don't think life actually rolls that way, because there's nuance. I love nuance. And when I read your articles, thank you so much, and your words, it's so and to the point, and like, oh, like that's all I need. And I can move forward from it. I've got like rereading this fantastic book on storytelling by Will Storr.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, fantastic book on storytelling. And I think we talked about this in Noosa really briefly, where the split brain experiments, you cut the corpus callosum, the bit that connects the two. They showed something to somebody's left eye, so it went to their right hemisphere, and the person, so for example, the person would stand up to go get a cup of water, and then they would ask, why did you go get the cup of water? And then they fictitiously make up a story as to what was going on.
Yeah.
And I found that so interesting. It was like, how much are we just BSing ourselves this entire time?
Yeah.
Like there's something not necessarily grander, but like there is a process going on, and we're just making up this story this entire time.
Thoroughly believing
why
it.
did I order peppermint tea? Did I really want it? Peppermint tea? Like, did I just make up a story? It's like, peppermint's going to make me feel fresh.
Right.
I find that really fascinating.
I'm just going to be super candid.
Yeah.
He showed up with one of those faces that just looked like hard luck. You know what I mean? Like a weathered face. He's probably younger than us, but like a really weathered face and like deep lines in his face. And even just the way he talked, like his face was kind of like contorted when he talked. And like, you just got the feeling like life does not come easy to this dude. And so we kind of did the chit chat for a while. And then I said, so what did you want to meet about? He's like, well, you know, I'm going through this trend. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm feeling lost. He's trying to be like a business consultant, but there's no money, no clients. And the dude's in a hoodie looking like a 48-year-old skateboarder. He said, people say that I don't look like a consultant and they don't want to hire me because I'm not wearing a suit. I said, well, have you considered putting on a suit? No, man, I don't want the kind of clients that think that I don't have something good to say because I'm not wearing a suit. I was like, okay. I was like, have you considered? And no matter what I suggested, and again, because I'm not usually in this role, I don't try to prescribe. no matter what I suggested, it was like, oh no, man, I don't want to do that. I mean, that's not me. That's, I don't want to branch out into something that's not me. It's nice meeting you. What do you say? Point is, he had so many excuses, and back to this split brain thing, how much of them are just bullshit, where to him, he's fully convinced that, no, man, I'm not going to wear a suit because something. Whereas the truth is, he just doesn't want to put forth any effort. I don't know. He just wants money to just suddenly start coming his way without having to do anything for it. I don't know. It was really frustrating. I walked away from that angry. Here I am talking about it a week later, but I walked away from that just like, God damn it. Like that was a really annoying 2 hours of my life. That was not fun.
Yeah, that sucks. And I definitely understand that frustration part. And I find that frustration part even worse when I can see it upon myself, which is why I want to ask those questions. And why after, say, finishing reading Useful Not True, and then thinking about what are the stories I'm telling of myself, and can I just rewrite these stories?
Yeah.
Years of just being able to rewrite everything. And even, for example, I started this new company end of January. And I was like, I can do this for a few more years. And then it's interesting because when I was speaking with Lauren, my wife, she's like, rather than retiring from, it's like retiring to, like, what are you moving towards? Like, well, what is it that you want to do? And I was like, I would find it really interesting if I took off the label or identity of like entrepreneur. I've been wearing that label for a while now, and I could see previously, so as a personal trainer from 18 years old, did that in Sydney, then did it in Dubai, and then did the online thing in 2014. And I held onto that label as personal trainer for way too long. And I was like, am I holding onto this label as entrepreneur for way too long? And what would happen if I took this label off? And what's the thing that I would want to do? I've always been very romantic about what if I would just, what if that was my thing? If I don't have to work for money and it's just purely love, and how do I actually give good to the world and feel good and get that good feel for myself at the same time? What would that actually really look like? And that's obviously when I look at yourself and I'm just like, is Derek embodying what I want to move towards? And that's what I find really fascinating about how can I change my story to then mold into what I think I want it to be. But again, am I bullshitting myself when I say that as well?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point you think, all right, is it useful bullshit? That's my favorite aspect to this is like, well, yeah, this might just be a lie, but whatever, this lie makes me feel better or this lie helps me take action. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why did you say too long for the personal trainer thing? Because that's an interesting one to pull apart, to ask yourself, why do I think that was too long?
Because it wasn't allowing me to be or do what was best going to serve me and where I wanted to go. So I was holding on. So for example, like, especially in the coaching world, I think there is a very big difference between a coach that runs a business or a businessman that runs a coaching business.
Ooh, right.
I'm not musically inclined, so I want to try and see if I can do like analogy that goes to your world. So could it be the difference between, for example, I'm going to go through many tangents here. One of the reasons why I chose what to do with like this new business now was, I think it was a Kanye West quote. There was, every artist needs a CEO. And so for me, I was like, oh, I'm really good at the acquisition side of things for an expert, for a coach, for doing somebody that is essentially selling information. I'm really good at that. And so I can sit behind that person, and essentially I saw it as like the master maker. So the person behind the scenes, the team behind the scenes, they can have the rest of the business doing what it is that they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But you know Dean Jackson?
I think so.
One of the OG marketing guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Tony Robbins interviewed him once. I think that's where I know.
He has this story, he calls it the self-milking cow. So there's the cow, and its job is to produce the milk. But everything has to happen around it. Somebody has to actually milk the cow. The milk has to then go to the factory that has to get shipped to the supermarket and so on and so forth. So everything else. But the cow just does the producing of the milk. It eats the grass and it lives its life and it does its thing. And so for me, I saw it a case of how does an artist, how does an expert, how does somebody that has some great things to share with the world just do their milk producing, and everything else then happens around it as well. And so for me, the holding on to that label was, I wasn't able to go and do that because I was still doing what a personal trainer should be doing. And
right. Okay.
so now I think, am I just doing what an entrepreneur should be doing? And I think I'm one of the stories I'm trying to like work through with myself right now is I'm really good at that. And so is it because I'm really good at that, I'm getting this self-fulfilling prophecy coming to me and like this like feedback loop of, yeah, you're good. So therefore you keep doing it. It gives me good feels. It has a positive benefit. As I said at the very start, that essay took me a really long time to write simply because I was just procrastinating. And I wasn't doing the actual job of sitting down and.
Because it's a different mindset too. I'm doing this like flipping a switch in my head, right? That it is such a different mindset to click from getting things done entrepreneur mode into thinking deeper, just pondering, which is.
Can we use an example right now? Because I find this really fascinating. So is Useful Not True completely finished?
Yeah.
And then, so I read on the Now page, now you've got this list of 47 things that you're working through.
Yeah.
How has that shift gone from 2 years of Useful Not True to now, hey, I've got all of these other things I now want to start plowing into?
Yeah. It's such a different mindset. And now it would be hard for me to switch back into pondering mindset on call, which is why I haven't done any writing in the past 7 weeks since finishing Useful Not True, switching into this getting things done mode. Do you know that book? Did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I follow it pretty much exactly. It's just what it says. But I'd have to really put aside time if I wanted to think deeper to write something. So I saw an interesting thing yesterday where, okay, computer programming wise, did you do any programming? Or?
Only a tiny bit.
Okay. There's a term in programming we often call certain things magical. Like Ruby on Rails has a lot of magic. You're able to basically just say model, customer, ID name, and it does a bunch of magic that magically creates the database, creates the interfaces, all that. So Ruby on Rails is a lot of magic. On the flip side, the opposite is where if you had a really low level code like C, where every single thing has to be explicitly named out. So just to do what I said, create a new customer in the database, would be like 5,000 lines of C code to do what Ruby on Rails is doing in 3 lines. But the C code has no magic. It's all very explicit. Okay, that was a tangent to say just this morning, I read a beautiful little essay by somebody that put aside the time to think more deeply about what do we mean when we say magic in programming. And you can tell just right away, it's like the first 2 paragraphs, he said, a lot of programmers say magic without really thinking through what this means. He said, so let's think of, and you can tell the guy probably spent 6 hours just thinking deeper about what do we really mean by magic? This, perhaps, may that. And he probably just sat there, whether talking with a friend or in his diary or whatever, he puts in the deep thinking time, which is very different from the getting things done mindset, right? And so I think that's the difference between being the artist, being the writer. It's you got to click out of that mode of the getting things done mode and almost just, as soon as we sat down, I turned off my phone, right? Same thing. It's like when it's time to write, it's hold down that switch for 3 seconds, slide it completely off, maybe even go over to the broadband modem and click it off, like there.
Yeah.
I am off. There is nothing on the internet I need right now. Everything I need is in my head and my soul or whatever, and I'm going to just ponder that. And it's such a different mindset. It takes a while to unwind into it. But I really like the metaphor you said of the cow, because you're right. It's like, what does the cow need to do? The cow needs to eat grass.
Yeah.
And stroll around the field and relax to make good milk. Cow can't be stressed checking the numbers.
What's your version of the cow? How does Derek
the thing we're talking about
produce milk?
It's the sitting and pondering.
Yeah.
Which that's what How to Live was, and that's what Useful Not True was. My first 2 books were more like, I might have done it in those first 2 books too, because they were more like articles that were spread out over years.
Yeah.
I would maybe put aside 2 hours or 3 hours once to write the article, and then a couple weeks later, I'd put aside an hour or 2 to write an article, and a few weeks later. Whereas How to Live and Useful Not True were just a different mindset as I describe. I'm just writing this now. Everything is off. I'm going to sit here. I've got 6 hours until I pick up my kid from school. I've got 6 hours to figure out what do I mean by the word useful. You know, and I just sit there and ponder, well, what is useful? Useful to who? Useful for what? Can we have useful as an adjective on its own without a further qualifier of useful for something? What are you gonna... And I just sit there and ponder these things. And dude, it was so rewarding. Do that because I'd come up with insights that I wouldn't have had I not put aside the time. Because some of them don't come until 2 or 3 hours in. I mean, that's what I could tell in your Dave Chappelle thing. It's like, reading that, I was like, oh, dude, you put a lot of thought into this. This was not a top of head thing.
So if I can pull on 2 threads for that, do you vibe personally for you with the word discipline?
Yeah.
Because for me, the act or practice of sitting down, switching everything off and be like, you know what, I've got 6 hours till I pick up my son. I'm here. And it's like Mozart said, I've never written a note. I just open my head and God pours it in.
Right.
And there is an act of an artist or somebody, I like using the word artist, of just their work is having to have the discipline to open themselves up to something, dare I say, greater than themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to come through. Like for me, I find it interesting when I reread something that I write and, okay, many of the time I'm like, oh, geez, I really should rewrite that. But sometimes I'm like, oh my God, that's actually really good.
I love that moment.
Was that me?
Yeah.
Like,
Which
I
might
can't take
Mozart or others say they're channeling God or whatever.
Yeah.
I just think of it as synthesizing everything I've ever taken in. When I get that feeling like you just said, is that me? Did I say that? It's like, I've read a lot. I've heard a lot. I've talked a lot, seen a lot. This is just the culmination of maybe disparate things, maybe a statue in a gallery mixed with an article online, mixed with a movie you saw, mixed with a conversation with a friend. And these 4 things created an idea that nobody's really said in that way before. That's amazing to feel that moment where you surprise yourself.
Have you subscribed? If not, this is the best time for you to subscribe, whether you're on the YouTube or on the podcast. Why? Because it would be a bummer if you missed out on everything that's to come, or don't subscribe if you're not actually getting much value out of this, because there is a zillion other things that you could be doing. So I'd rather you go and do that. The ball's in your court.
bouncing between something, and especially not in a typical hot potato conversation where someone's just like, I talk, then you talk, and I talk, then you talk, and it kind of goes back and forth. But there's almost like, how can we go to someplace different where we can't go by ourselves?
You can do that by yourself, though. It's a different process. So I felt the same. There were many times I felt that a lot of my best articles and ideas came from conversations with friends.
Yeah.
But here I am in New Zealand. My friends are in different time zones. I'm writing this now. I've got 6 hours now. Can't always call a friend to bounce everything around. Opening any of the, whether it's Chat GPT or Claude, opening some of those things just to say to it the same things you would say to a friend, it can help. And then the other times is just imagining other people in your head. It sounds woo-woo, but just like if you're just sitting there by yourself thinking, what would Tony Robbins say? What would
I've done this with you. So
Cool.
like, what would Derek say to me? And I think it's very much the case of who's the round table of people that I have, and how can I go to people for different parts of my life or questions that I might have, or bounce things around. And I find that interesting as to if I was to sit down and I'm journaling and I was like, how would Derek look at this situation? How would he look at this differently to the way that I am right now? Weirdly, that opens up some portal, something else where I'm able to tap in and get something where I wasn't before.
Cool. And sometimes it comes just from the idea itself.
What is that? What's that magic?
Okay. So that one is, so say do you want to just pick any topic and pick anything on any topic, or should we just leave it abstract?
No, let's do something specific. What do I do in the next chapter of my life?
Okay. So just the idea. So if you look at the idea itself as if you're holding the thing in your hand, you flip it around. Like, why do I think I need to figure out what to do with the next chapter? Why do I think life has chapters? What does chapter mean? It's a division. Why do I think it's a division? You can just start to take the thing itself and open it. Oh,
here you go.
That's where you just start having fun. Just like stream of consciousness. I try to write it all down.
Are you literally sitting typing? It's just tactical.
Yeah, I just have a rough, just an ideas file where I'm just sitting open, blah, 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 on any subject. As I'm thinking, my fingers just keep going. I never delete. It's never meant for the public eye. It's just a way to keep capturing things so that sometimes maybe a week later, I open that file to come back to that idea. And I can.
Was it you that had the idea of keeping a note file called My Thoughts On?
Yes.
Oh my
thoughts
God,
on.
because I have
Nice.
Apple Notes. It's like My Thoughts On, like a ton of different categories. So
Cool.
if I go for a walk after this, I'm like, oh my God, I'll find that category and just dump it down for later.
Thoughts on writing itself. Like anytime, thoughts on where to live. Thoughts on having a dog. I still don't have a dog, but if I did, I've got a whole file full of thoughts on having a dog from 10 years of my thoughts on having a dog or not. So if I'm ready to make that big, giant 15-year decision, I would go back through all of my 10 years of thoughts on having a dog. And
we only got a dog for the first time 9 months ago.
Oh, wow.
It was very interesting.
It's a huge decision.
Yeah, it is. I think it was bigger than having 4 children.
I know a dude that had a dog, and this is like when I was like 22 years old and I didn't know anybody that had kids, right? He had a dog and then he had a kid, and he said, man, now that I have a baby, I can tell you, having a dog is a lot harder. He said, having a baby's pretty great. He said, it's not that hard. And he said, man, having a dog's more work.
This might be throwing myself under the bus, but I think my wife and I definitely had more discussions on having a dog than having children.
Well,
and it was definitely the case.
It's a big decision.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to sometimes compensate against or compensate for our cultures. So many people in a culture go, oh, I just saw this sweet little cute dog, so I just adopted it. Or give it as a gift to here's a dog. Happy birthday. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's a gnarly gift to give someone.
I used to joke with my kid when he's like 6 years old, he gets invited to Stevie's birthday party. What are we going to give him? I said, let's give him a puppy. It'll be great. Just mess with his parents. Here you go. Now, what are his parents going to do? Take it away? Say no.
Yeah, you can't do that.
After it's already licked him. Anyway, all right, open tangents. So I totally do that thing you said about what would Seth Godin say? What would Mark Manson say? And then when I ran out of those, I would just start looking at the idea itself and try reversing it, flipping it around, questioning it.
When you think of Seth, what's the difference he's looking at life and questions? What's his magic?
Ooh, fun question. Seth is others focused. It's hard to get him to talk about himself, even in person, even one-on-one like this. He just keeps things focused on others. And when I got meta and asked him about that once, he admitted it. He said, he didn't say to a fault, but almost. He said, there was a time that he said something like, the same day my wife started her new job, I got fired from mine or something like that. There was some situation like that where he had a major thing happen that day, but he knew his wife had a major thing happen that day. He said, I didn't even tell her about my thing until the next day because he said, I just wanted to keep the spotlight on her special day. And to me, that sounds almost like to a fault. Like, all right, Seth, you're hiding yourself. All right. But anyway, so Seth is completely others focused, has principles that he follows. Did you ever read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective? I think Seth Godin is a lot like that guy. Like, he's not going on whim. I think he has some core principles that he feels are important and follows those no matter how he feels. He reminds me, I don't know if he's Jewish or not. I always assumed that he was, but I don't actually know that for a fact. But I know that when I went to Israel last September, I met a lot of people that also operate by these principles, like almost very traditional, this is what you do, whether you feel like it or not. This is the tradition. This is what we honor. This is what you do. Yeah, I think Seth has that kind of thinking a lot. This is what you do. This is what we do.
Was your first book published because of Seth? I've forgotten the name of the author, The Flinch. Have you read The Flinch?
You don't know.
Oh, so I listened to an interview of the author of The Flinch. I'm sorry for forgetting his name. It's a remarkable book. It's short, super down your alley. But it was only published because Seth said to the author, you have to write this book. Like, this is you right now. And
I wonder how many he's done that for.
Yeah, totally. And I just found that really interesting because listening to how Seth called you up, starting a publishing gig, can you be part of it?
Yeah.
Go.
He was even more flattering. It's like, I want you to be my first author.
Wow.
I was like, okay.
That's really cool.
Because I had, for years, people have been asking me, hey, you going to make a book? I said, no book. I don't want to make a book. I'm happy just writing blog posts. I'm so glad I did, though. People treat books differently than blog posts. And so do I, even just using myself as kind of like social media. I don't do social media. So even we were at that conference in Noosa and there were so many people, they were experts in Facebook marketing and Facebook. And I'm just like, who clicks on Facebook ads? I don't know that audience because I don't do that myself. But I don't read blog posts much, but I do read books. When I realized in hindsight, oh, actually, this is actually more aligned for me to focus on books instead of blog posts. Whereas maybe it's also with the times. When 20 blog posts were more in the zeitgeist, not as much now. But anyway, I'm really glad I switched to books. But yeah, that was just because Seth asked.
Is there more book stewing within?
I don't know. It must be. I think I do think in that format, even just as a, like, useful, not true. I didn't have answers. I had a question. I started like, I want to know more about this mindset of useful, not true. I know a little bit about it. I gravitate towards it, but I don't know anything about it. So I want to learn more about it. So that was like 2 years of research. But so now I wonder, what would that be next? I don't know. I mean, ideally it would be something surprising. Nobody likes when somebody just okay, wait, I should take that back. I was going to say nobody likes it when somebody just keeps doing the same shit. The AC/DC approach to making music. But let me take that back. A lot of people like it when somebody keeps doing the same shit.
I like it when someone stops doing the same winning formula to try and find something that just might be what they want to do.
Okay, so back to Chris becoming more of a writer than an entrepreneur. Are you feeling that entrepreneur is your winning formula, that you're been there, done that, ready to try the challenge? Or what's the thought?
If my winning formula, do I feel complete with it? Like I've worn that team shirt and I can take it off and go find another? I'm not sure. Does it excite me and expand me as to what does the next chapter look like as a writer? Let's just say, if we've slapped that label on top of it. Then I also ask myself, hang on, is just the life of a writer a life of a writer, but is it not a weaving thread of entrepreneurship actually in it to be able to do that as well? So I think of maybe Ryan Holiday, I think would be another example of, love is writing, but he's also got many other facets going on that sustains him doing what he's doing. But yet I can see that he's there producing book after book and moving from one work to another as well. And so what does my flavor of that look like is kind of the question I've been posing myself.
I do often think that writers have more authority and are paid attention to more when they're still out on the battlefield doing it, right? There are plenty of exceptions to that. Seth Godin just started, we kind of heard that he had Yoyodyne or something, but then his writing just had so many good ideas that it wasn't about like, hey, I did this thing yesterday that it worked, got me a 68% better result, but can I swap it and give you this? Thank you. It is more impressive when somebody is still doing it instead of just, I'm a dude with an opinion. Would you write about marketing? What do you think? Would you write more about life?
I'm going to be perfectly honest. Everything that I've done, if I look at the story, the BS story that I tell myself of my life, it's always been solving my own problem. And like, I remember somebody asking me, what would you do? This was a little while ago. What would you do if you didn't have, it was Taki actually that asked me this question. He goes, you're going to be at the point pretty soon you don't have to work for money. What would you actually do? And immediately I just blurted out, learn and share. That's what I want to do. I was really overweight as a kid. I lost the weight. I then became a personal trainer because I wanted to help other people go through that. I ran a really crappy personal training business. I learned to figure out how to run a personal training business. I then taught other personal trainers how to do that, to then solve that company. And then for me, I think this iteration was, I didn't feel worthy. I didn't love myself. I didn't love who I was in the life that I was living. So I've been trying to figure that out. Now that I feel like I've actually ticked that box, I now want to help other people go through that process as well. So I think it's always been like, I've got a problem. I solved my problem. How can I help other people now do that with all stumblings that I went through in that process as well?
That's a really clear way to think about it and describe it. I like that a lot. Even just starting from I was a fat kid. And going through it like that. This problem, that solution, this problem, that solution.
The only interest or the conundrum I think I've put myself in now, I was like, what's my distillation of what it exactly is that I want to be sharing now? Because I do love to be talking about business, but if I talk about business too much, I get really bored of it. And I'm like, oh, come on, fellas, can we please not talk about this anymore? And then I would love to talk about philosophies in any different philosophical school or anything like that as well. But then I'm also very much about, so what? Do you mean like we can do all this intellectual thinking? I enjoy that. But there's also a case of like rubber on the road. What am I doing differently right now
Mm-hmm.
so that I essentially become a better person to help others? And I'm trying to figure that out. Cool. I think that's why I was just like, I wanted to come here and spend this time with you is like, how can I find it so incredible and I'm so grateful for you for wanting to spend this time together. And then I was on the plane and I was just like, I feel so grateful. One, Derek wants to hang out. Two, I have the ability just to be like, yo, I'm just going to jump on a plane. Let's go and do this. And then, do you know what I mean? Here for a few days. Then I go to Bali for a week. Then I'm back in Australia with a family. Then I'm in Austin in California for the end of September around. And so for me, it was a case of if I put my business coaching hat on or like my entrepreneur hat on, the Chris that wants to share what he wants to share is a really crappy, not precise message.
Okay.
Because I want to talk about fatherhood. I want to talk about like, do you mean business and wealth and freedom and sovereignty and happiness and fulfillment and the intersections of all of those things that come together as well.
I have an idea for you. What do you think about life improvement as a side effect instead of the main focus?
I like that.
Meaning entrepreneur-wise, I meet some people who say, I want to make the world a better place. Therefore, I'm starting a business that, and it's always some big change the world charity idea. We're going to do this and everybody's going to hold hands. We're going to spread harmony through the world. And we're going to create an international chain of schools. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's one idea. But it's forgetting that you can make the world a better place by having a really good bakery or making really good bicycle parts and communicating well to teach people how to get excited about riding their bike instead of driving. Like all these things make the world a better place. You don't have to. So you don't have to. I was making the picture of the world with my hand. I just realized how the microphone might pick that up for later. But maybe for even Chris as a writer, it doesn't have to be a switch to now I'm going to talk about life. Maybe it is intertwined with these other things. You continue doing what you're doing, but helping people change the whole way they think of their life at the same time.
What I picked up when you say as a side effect and what actually resonates with me when you say that is I also see I'll use hyperbole to prove the point, but like on one side of the spectrum, you have the capitalist, build companies, make a ton of money at any expense. Then there's the spiritual sandals, linen wearing crowd that is, I just want to help people. And I see so much in that world also that they are not equipped with a skill set to actually be able to monetize that then creates this positive flywheel effect for them to do it more.
Yeah.
I was like, if you're like, I remember actually really clear when I first became a personal trainer, the very first day I walked into the gym, I was 18 years old.
Wow.
And I remember seeing this one side of trainers that were really smart, like highly intellectual, very skilled, but lacked the skill set to be able to say, attract clientele, to be able to keep them and do all of those things. I knew they were remarkable and I saw them, and it was like that first week of me starting, I saw two of them have to essentially get a 9-to-5 job because they couldn't sustain them doing what they were doing, even though they were incredible at it. But then I saw this other crowd of traders that essentially had wads of cash in their locker and were simply, they were looking the look and they were able to attract the clientele, but the training they were doing and the methodology and everything like that was not great. And I was like, oh, there's these two worlds. What would happen if they come together? And for me, I try to use the words like with the right crowd. How can I bridge success and spirituality together?
Did you really think this at 18? Or did you back project
success
this?
and spirituality?
No, but at that moment where you said you looked in the gym.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. But were you actually thinking that in the moment, or did you now back project onto remembering that moment?
I'm definitely bullshitting myself and all of us at the same time. But I remember looking at the two different at 18 and being like, oh, that's messed up. And how do I now navigate myself? Because I want the success that this has.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to help the people like these people
Because that's an
able to do
amazing
as well.
insight to even see that separation. Because yeah, it is almost oil and water kind of.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's usually just one or the other.
Yeah.
Same as in music or anything. There's these amazing musicians who just have their head in their guitar strings and can't communicate it. And then these people that are great at making their music very attractive, but the music they make is kind of, crappy.
Yep.
And so it's tough to, anyway, it's probably the same in a lot of fields. Greatness versus attractiveness.
Yeah.
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 And so what I like the side effect is, well, the way
Wait, sorry. I totally jumped in and interrupted you. You were going to say, so now like the spiritual and the,
success side,
yeah,
bring them together.
yeah.
Because for me, I think they're the one path anyway.
Okay.
They'd have to be, but I like to see it that way.
Mhm.
And if I'm able to if I'm able to produce the work that wants to come through me and that I enjoy doing, gives me the good feels, that helps people, and that there is the mechanism behind, this is the other thing as well, and I think I'd take from your music, your people, sorry.
Your music and people.
What I loved about that was the way I see it is there's a meaning-making machine and there's a money-making machine. And I think a lot of people think that the meaning-making machine and their money-making machine need to be the same thing.
Right.
So the way I make meaning in my life is the way that I have to make money.
Right.
But they can be separate. And that's what it is. Essentially,
That's well put.
you might not have been putting this down, but this is what I picked up from
That's
that
cool.
book.
No, I think you said
Was
it better.
they can be different.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think my meaning-making machine and money-making machine slightly overlap, but they're kissing. They're not really over the top of each other. And so this is when I started this new company, I was like, all right, what if I was just to build this company? Let's say financial freedom is I want $1 million a year to be able to live off. So therefore I need 20 to 25 million of cash producing assets that spits out to mean $1 million of passive. I don't need to do anything to work for money, and I can simply just be here and produce the best that wants to come out of me. For me, is having conversations just like this, distilling that into something that I can then give back out. And then how do I continue to do that? And that was the epiphany that I had actually flying here yesterday was, I just want to do this. Like, this is what I want to do.
What's the this?
How do I have conversations like this and then distill that into from my learning experiences to then share that out into the world in whatever medium kind of wants that to come through.
Okay.
Whether it's video or writing or doing a constellation of those things. Does that make sense? So for me, what if the business side, the money-making machine was I build the company, sell it. I know what the numbers are. I know that I can do that in the near future. And therefore I don't have to work for money anymore. And then I'm able to just do the work, because for me, that feels more congruent than doing the work. And this is where I can be completely wrong, because it could be a side effect thing. Then I need to have my money making machine and my meaning making machine doing the same thing.
Okay, so wait, let me make sure I understand. By the way, I think you just said it better than I've said it. The money-making machine and the meaning-making machine don't need to be the same thing. That you can keep them separate. The main complaint then people have is when they feel that the money-making side drains them, so they have nothing left for the meaning-making side. That's the usual problem. But what you're saying, when you said flying here yesterday feeling, I just want to do this, that's the part of you speaking that would like for this meaning-making thing to be the only thing you do. But you're conflicted because part of you, that's the part of you that wants them to be the same. This is just who I am now. This is what I do. I'm Chris, the meaning-making machine, and I'm going to make money doing it, versus just letting it be a separate thing. We're not trying to monetize it. Yes.
Because on the plane yesterday, I was like, okay, the business does fantastically well and I can fund this meaning making, no dramas whatsoever. So do I just continue on with this right now? For example, I've got to go to Austin, California in September. And I was like, I'm just going to book in interviews and start doing and get back on the bandwagon of doing interviews. That's the thing that lights me up the most. All right, let's do this.
When we say you're doing interview, you mean like podcast style?
Yeah, correct.
Okay,
correct.
cool.
And I also feel like living in Bali for so long, and for me, I felt like I was living on this little island, tucked away by myself,
doing my thing and very much keeping an arm's length away of putting myself out into the world. And even going through, I remember in Noosa we talked about like when I did like that digital sabbatical, I was just like, I'm off everything. What's the point? Like I just need a good chunk. It was like 9 months of just completely turning everything off. And then again, when I sold the last company, I kind of did like you want a fries with that and then sold all my social media platforms at the same time. So then it was like, all right, I'm starting literally from zero with all of this, which felt really fantastic. But then there was also the question of who do I want to put out into the world now? Who am I and how do I put that back out into the world? So that was kind of like the crossroads of all of that.
I'll tell you a couple of my little examples around this in case it's useful. When I sold CD Baby, that was my situation too. I got like my only connections to the world were through that.
Yeah.
And luckily I had one tiny overlap where I was allowed to keep contacting my customers for one more year.
Yeah.
After I sold the company. So that's when I put up my Sivers personal blog, which I had never really used my name. I'd always just been the CD Baby guy. I had 1 year of kind of telling my old customers, hey, check out my new site, and then connecting to them directly. But other than that, there's such a small percentage of the people that know me now. I had that moment of just, who am I then if I'm not the CD Baby guy?
Yeah.
So at first, I still felt like, okay, well, everybody I'm speaking to are just musicians. Those are the only people that care what I have to say. So I only spoke to musicians. But then, and sorry if this is stuff that you've heard me talk about before, I had about 1.5 years of feeling lost where I thought I was just the CD Baby guy and that's what was going to go into my gravestone, right? 60 years later, Derek made CD Baby 60 years ago and nothing much since. And I really thought that's my fate. But then after 1.5 years of feeling adrift and lost and uninspired, this was 2009 and the TED conference was a big thing at the time, right? And I'd been watching TED Talks and just loving them. And suddenly it was like a bolt of inspiration. I want to be a TED speaker. I was like, oh, it was the first thing I had felt in 1 year that made me bolt up in my seat.
Wow.
And get excited and really turn it into action. Not just, yeah, that'd be nice, but take action. Because I immediately came up with this action plan. How can I be a TED speaker? I'm going to have to start deliberately coming up with unique, interesting ideas that other people haven't come up with. I'm going to have to share them widely. I'm going to have to be in an intellectual network of people in intellectual hubs like New York City. I'm going to have to make a name for myself as a thinker so that people, when they think of me like a Seth Godin or Malcolm Gladwell or something like that, they think of me as a guy that produces interesting ideas. None of this was true. I was just the guy that made a music distribution company. So I was like, this is my action plan. That made me take so much good action, inspiring action, the right actions, or the actions that were also fun to take, not only as a means to an end, but I enjoyed the means as well. And then it happened almost right away. I thought this was a 5-year plan. It ended up being a 5-month plan. 5 months later, the TED conference asked me to do a big main stage talk in front of everybody. And boom, suddenly more people knew me from TED than ever knew me from CD Baby. But
Is that the one where you had the 2 people dancing?
Yeah.
So good. Yeah.
That was my hit single.
Yeah.
But then my first book came out through Seth Godin, and people wanted to talk to me about entrepreneurship because they heard that I sold CD Baby for a ton of money. So everybody started picking me as an entrepreneur and wanting to talk business. And so still for a couple of years, just like I used to think people only wanted to talk to me as the music guy, now I thought people only wanted to talk to me as the entrepreneur guy. So for years, almost 10 years, I would only talk about entrepreneur-related things, business-related things, startup-y things. But the truth is I wasn't into it. Same as you just said earlier, like when I talk about business too long, I was like, I get bored.
It feels like chewing on cardboard.
Yeah. So not into it. Also, I haven't actually started a company since 1998 or something. Really, I sell my books, but I'm not really approaching that as a business, right? So I just feel like, dude, there are literally hundreds of thousands of people out there actively starting businesses. Talk to any of them about it. Not me. I haven't done it since 1999. So then I realized that what I would really talk about with friends and in private, non-public conversations, we'd talk about life shit and love life and happiness and fulfillment and curiosity and intellectual wonderings, not how to make more money or how to get more customers. I never talked about that shit privately. So only I feel like the last 5 years, I started phasing into trying to talk about publicly the stuff I like talking about privately.
Oh, that's cool.
But it was a slow phase to trust that people wanted to hear this. And now that they do, I feel better than ever about it, because now it's, okay, now I'm really just talking about what I really love talking about or thinking about. And those last 2 books, The How to Live and Useful Not True, this is the shit that's really on my mind. This feels much better. I guess Hell Yeah or No was like that too. That wasn't about making money. Anyway, so that's, for what it's worth, that letting go of what you think people want from you, or I shouldn't say letting go, because I did pander to it, and I mean that in a good way. I was pleasing that market of what people wanted to hear from me, while pulling them into who I am and then taking a step to the left to the other thing. That's something maybe I've noticed from the metaphor of music artists, is that people tend to get into a person. They might like a song because it's catchy, but then that makes them get interested in who's the singer, who's singing. And they start caring about her. I might have said carrying, I meant caring. They start caring about her as a person. That Taylor Swift changes her style from country to dance. They'll go with her because now they're wrapped up in her personal, they care about her as a person. So I think it's the same thing with public figures. They might hear about you through marketing advice, personal trainers, but then they start caring about you as a person and wanting to hear what you have to say on anything.
One way I have thought about it was almost like, I think I can do it like a Trojan horse, where they come for the money, but they stay for the fulfillment.
Good comparison.
Because that's all I care about. And there's a good friend of mine, Ali Shafrin, said,
wait, by the way, before you change, you could even tell them that you're doing that.
I do, for sure.
Okay, good. You could say like, look, I'm giving you a Trojan horse here. Come for the money, stay for the fulfillment.
The example, the epiphany that I had for this was, so I sold the last business, and then I was like, okay, I want to get really good at helping I didn't want to teach business building. I wanted to do business building, but I was like, I don't want to start my next business until I really know what it is, until it's just like pouring out of me that I'm like, this has to be done.
Cool.
I want to have that feeling for it.
I like that.
Because I had a friend of mine, Alex Shafrin, said before I sold, I was talking to him, getting some advice. And he was like, just be careful, because when you sell, the silence is deafening. And I remember really feeling that also. And I had so many people say to me before I sold, I don't know what the advice is that you got told, but everyone was like, take 6 months off, take 12 months off, just do absolutely nothing. And I was, no, I know what I want to do. Are you kidding me? I remember really clearly, I was on the last Zoom call, and essentially it was just like me getting kicked out of all the platforms and changing passwords, the final goodbyes to the leadership team, that whole thing. And I clicked end call. I was in Bali at the time. I clicked end call, and then I stood up, walked out, met my wife down at a cafe that was on the beach. I had a soda water. 30 minutes later, I'm like, all right, I'm done. Like, I need to go do something now. Like, I was like, I know what I want to go and do. And so I spent about a year just consulting CEOs, just like, you come to me, how can I help you? And just like solving their stuff. And the vast majority of the time, now granted, there was like 90% men as well, but the vast majority of the time would be 3 to 4 minutes into a conversation. I'd be like, okay, great. If you wave my magic wand, what is it that you want? What do you think's missing or broken? And they would go into their spiel. I need more clients, or our profit margins, or all of this kind of like marketing, businessy, acquisition-y kind of stuff. And then 3 to 4 minutes into the conversation, I'd be like, the problem's you. Like it was like they had a personal problem that was showing up inside of their business. And it just happened over and over and over again. And just, I learned from me having the my thoughts on list. I kept a file of just all of my learnings from all of these calls. And I did like over 220 hours of these calls.
Wow. Whoa.
Yeah. Wow. Like, I was like, because I don't know, being the meathead that I am, the way that I looked at it was like, I need to put my reps in. And so I'm just going to put my reps in
great way
as
to
much
think
as
about
possible. And it was the same thing I kept hearing, like over and over and over again. And so much of it was these guys had built a business that they did not enjoy. They almost felt handcuffed because the money was good, but they just were like hating life. And then they had all of these other problems showing up in their life as well that was just causing them so much agony. And I was like, oh, this really sucks. Like, and many of the time I'd get off these calls as well. I had a couple of conversations last week with some guys who were like, hey, can I quickly have a chat with you? I was like, yeah, cool, no dramas, more than happy to. And one of them was a personal trainer. Sorry, this is crazy. One of them was a personal trainer back from the days when I first started. he's been like, I've been following your stuff, been loving it, vibing it, like blah, blah, blah. And then when he was explaining to me everything that was going on with his life, he's struggling to put food on the table, pay the bills. And he's really good at what he does, but like his business acumen and his actual like economic model to his business, everything he's doing just sucks. And so I got off the call and I remember walking out and seeing Lauren and just being like, I was like emotionally affected. I was like, this really sucks. Like this guy's in deep pain. I can't really fix it either. Like it's not my responsibility to come in and try and fix everything right now. But it was the same feeling in essence and energy that was behind all of these other conversations that I would have with these guys that were just like really struggling and then also didn't know how to get out of it as well. And they've just been like gritting their teeth for so long, trying to get through this whole thing. And I think that's what terrifies me at the same time, because I've also been there. So that terrifies me.
Wait, I don't get the connection. What in that terrifies you, for you?
Me falling into that and me doing that as well, which was the case of, if I don't make this change, or if I don't put more time and effort into writing, having conversations, sharing that out into the world, am I essentially just doing that, but in a different manifestation?
Wait, I might have just spaced out for a second, but I lost it. So this guy calling you and like him not having his personal shit together, how did that fit this?
Him not having his personal stuff together, like his marriage on the rocks, his relationship with his child, not great, was stemming from him stressing over finances and money and business and all of these other things. And it was like the entanglement of all of it coming together.
Okay.
And that's when I was like, oh no, like all of this that I do want to talk about is very much the same thing coming together. I just haven't been able to articulate it in such a way where it's like, it's the Trojan horse. So it's like, or is it better to be like, yeah, I'm kind of the guy that can help you make money. But what I also believe is like happiness to me is a side effect from doing the things that are actually worthy of you doing as well. Like I love the feeling of putting my head on the pillow at night, exhausted from the day, and being like, that was a good day. Do you know what I mean? I loved my wife. I was a great father to my 4 daughters. I'd done some good work. I'd like trained really hard. I had a great conversation with a friend. And I'm just like, holy hell, I've got to fall asleep right now. Like I can't keep my eyes open. I love that feeling. And so for me, that's the side effects of doing good work.
Okay. Nice.
So I was trying to pull that thread from you saying that, because when you said side effect, I was like, oh my God, I think Derek just pulled exactly it.
So check this out. It might be a really powerful message to communicate, even to the point of being like your main message to the world, to say a version of that story you just told me. Client calls me because he's having trouble making money. Within 10 minutes, it's obvious that his romantic relationship, his relationship with his kid, his health or whatever, these things are all struggling. And that's why he's having trouble making money, that this is all integrated. So to say, hi, I'm Chris. I know you're coming to me to make money or to make more money, but I'm going to work with you on all these other aspects, because you can't just isolate and just make more money while ignoring these other aspects. You can, but it's not sustainable.
Okay. How well do you know Mark Mann?
Pretty well.
Okay. Because I want to use him as an example, because I really admire what he does and how he shows up. And I've listened to a ton of his stuff and I was like, oh God, yeah, I really like this dude. This is really cool. I say that because the sells personal development, and let's just use the label personal development. He sells personal development in a way people will actually pick it up and therefore use it and get into it. Like he's kind of the Trojan horse in that scenario, the way that I see it.
Yeah.
And that's what I really, one of the things I really, really like about the way that he does it is he's being able to take these concepts and these philosophies and these teachings and these thoughts and these insights and being able to package it in a way where people are going to want to then pick it up and want to take it and at least sink their teeth into it and give it a bit of a taste test first and then go deeper into it. Because we had a insight, we've had a bunch of clients come to us that was like coaches or experts and wanting to sell personal development. And we were just like, oh my God, this is so hard to sell. Like we were really struggling with being able to be like, oh no, yeah, we can build the domain, your marketing and all that stuff for you. Like, but what they were selling and who they were and the way they were trying to sell it, it was just really difficult for us to do. Where it would be easier if we had somebody that wanted to sell a sewing course.
I see. Because it's too broad.
It's too broad, but it's also, I could be completely wrong, but I use this when I explain this to my team. It was a case of, for somebody to buy personal development, they're making a admission that they are broken in some way.
Okay.
So they're being like, oh, I'm not a good husband or father or person, and I need to be able to work on myself and do these things. So they have to make this admission first to be like, yes, I need this help in this area of my life, which can be a very tough thing for somebody to be able to admit to themselves.
Yeah.
But for somebody to be like, my bank account isn't the number that I want it to, and I want it higher, it's almost easier for them to admit that they have that problem. So therefore they need that solution to fix that problem.
Ooh, that's a really good insight. I like that.
And so when I see Mark, for example, I'm like, oh, he's doing it in a way where people are like, yes, I'm willing to go into that and have these conversations and learn about this and use these insights. That's in a way, well, the way I see it is people are more than happy to admit that they have that problem and need that solution.
It was an embarrassing thing to be caught in the self-help section of a bookstore.
Yeah.
You know, which is kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never felt embarrassed about that, but I felt that that was the cultural norm. It's like, you're reading a self-help book?
Yeah.
You saw it.
Yeah.
You know, sorry, sad sack of shit.
Well, I remember reading many books, like publicly, like carrying books around and not having the cover, like not sitting and reading like this. I mean, it's kind of like,
I don't want people to see. Yeah. And maybe that was the...
Do you mean like if I'm reading a book called How to Live Life with a Small Penis, I'm not exactly walking. It's like, oh my God. So that's just so good.
Fun example. Maybe that was the subtle trick of the subtle art of not giving a fuck. Is the title itself. It's like, I just really, I don't give a fuck. This is a really good insight. I like this. That people are willing to admit that they want more money. And then Trojan horse, you can help them focus on other aspects of their life. Earlier, I mentioned David Allen, who wrote Getting Things Done.
Yeah.
And it's right there, I believe, in the first chapter or two of his book, where he says, when I work with a client for the first time, means that I work with these Fortune 500 CEOs that want me to help improve their business effectiveness. Said the first thing I do, we always start on a Sunday at their garage at home. And people always push back on this, and I'm like, no, we're going to look at your garage at home. And this is going to tell me something about how you're dealing with your life. We're going to deal with your garage first before we go back to Procter & Gamble and work on your business there. And I've always thought about that insight. That's his Trojan horse in a way to say, okay, you want to improve your business effectiveness, huh? Sure. Put this as a business expense. I will help you with your business effectiveness. Now let's meet at your house. And I guess that's what you could do in a way. It's this other stuff you're talking about. Like you could continue to say, I will improve your business. Come to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And okay, now that I'm going to help you improve your business, let's talk about your relationship.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So instead of switching gears, you could keep that existing expertise and reputation that you've built up on that side and keep using that since you've had this great insight, which I'd never thought about so directly like that people are willing to admit they want more money and not willing to admit that they need help in their love life, but that it's all connected.
Oh my God. That's profound.
Hey, you brought it up. That's a good one.
Yeah, but you pointed at it. I'm going to just change gears. What's the label or identity you're wanting upon yourself now?
That I'm what on myself?
The label or identity you're wanting upon yourself
Wanting,
now.
that's what I thought you said. Wanting. Ooh, okay. I actually do have an answer. Just last Wednesday, somebody interviewed me on his podcast, and his opening question was something like, what's the main question you're asking in life? And my answer was, what's another way to look at this? And that is my ongoing cross-discipline lateral question in all aspects of life, is what's another way to look at this? And I could define myself by that. I think that's actually been very constant for me since I was in my late teens, and I'm 54 now. And it's interesting to look back at your life and see, you go through phases. You've had 3 distinct phases, right? I've had 3 or 4, and say, but what has persisted through that? And therefore, what seems to be pretty damn core to who I am. As you know, I don't believe that who I am thing, because it's just,
Yeah.
I also don't believe that word authentic, because what the hell is that? But, your earlier influences. But we got to admit that there's certain things that we keep gravitating towards, that we have a nature. You've got 4 kids. People have a nature.
Yeah.
Even if you raise them exactly the same.
Oh, yeah.
I have 2 pet rats now.
Yeah.
They have never been more than a meter apart. One is always cuddly. One is always exploratory. One is full of energy. One is sleepy. Always. And they look identical. And so when I pull them both out of the cage, there's only one the design on their tummies is a little bit different, but I can just tell right away which is which, even though they look identical, because one just goes, just wants to snuggle, and the other one goes up to my shoulder. And every time when I look at their tummies, yep, true to personality. I've had them for 3 months now.
Wow.
Every single time. One of them always wants to explore. One of them always wants to cuddle. Okay, so we have a nature. I have found it fascinating for 35 years now, this idea of what's another way to look at this. Whether it's music, business, writing, programming, life choices. I think that's my one. That to answer your question, what would I want to be? How did you put it? What would I want to be labeled?
Yeah, what's a label or identity?
I don't know what label you call it. The guy who's looking for another way to look at things.
Yeah.
How much did we talk about Dubai?
Oh, a little bit, not tons. Go into it further.
Well, I mean, how long were you there?
2 years.
Okay. Were you in, what part of town did you live in?
On the Palm Jumeirah.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting twist. Did you feel isolated out there? Or did you go into the heart of the city more?
I was working throughout a couple of different gyms. It was all the way from Marina to DFC.
Okay.
And there was one in Alcos, that was like the main one.
So you lived there, but you would go into gyms.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was like out all day, then come back to the Palm.
Okay.
Interesting you actually bring that up, because we were talking about where do we live?
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of a topic conversation my wife and I right now, because we're throwing that up. Our oldest daughter is 11 right now.
It's a huge decision, because where you choose to live is going to really define who they are. Because they will be going to be more influenced by their peers than by you, probably.
Yes.
And who their peers are and what values their peers have is dependent on you guys choosing where to live. It's huge.
We love the school that they're in, a Steiner school. There are 3 are in a Steiner school at the moment, and we love that.
A Steiner school in Newson?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What a beautiful balance of...
It's amazing. And then some of it not so amazing.
Okay.
Which is where the question mark has come up. And so we've looked at, for example, we look at the high school kids there, and they're just not raw. Like, there's no raw in them.
Yeah.
And when I look at my girls, and I can see just like life pouring out of them, and then wanting to do their different things, and then just the way they show up, it's almost like I've seen their light go a little bit dimmer.
Yeah.
It's been really hard to see.
Yeah.
And it's one of the questions we're asking now. I was like, well, where do we go? Who do we want to be around? And how do we best help them be them?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm honestly, I'm struggling with that question right now.
Let's talk about this. I'm going to take this off while I pee.
Go for it.
I love this subject. And it's a little bit of a weird situation where, for my situation, I'm going to talk theoretically.
Yeah.
Because I had a baby with a woman I was only together with for like a year or 2. We met. 9 months later, she was pregnant, broke up after a year since he was 2 years old. We live a mile down the road from each other, but this decision about where to live, like, we've been able to follow it through just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
But not thoroughly, because we both disagree and we're not together anyway. So, But okay, the way I would have wanted it is to raise him from like age 0 to say 7 here in New Zealand. Nature wonderland, growing up, just connecting with the real physical world. Hands in the river, feet in the mud, the real physical world. Not addicted to screens, right? Just out in the world. Age 7 or 8, brain is developing faster. I wanted to move to Europe, to be in the middle of a place where he could see that there's not just one way, but there's my theme. but Europe being a place with many different cultures concentrated. So France one weekend, Spain the next weekend, Finland the next weekend. And that he would grow up seeing the multiplicity of perspectives and getting more culture. And it's also a place where it's kind of exciting to take in all this culture and to see castles versus palaces versus paintings. And then when he's, say, age 12 or 13, I would want to move to Singapore or Taiwan, to a place where it's cool to be smart. So I'll just pick Singapore because I know it well. In Singapore, the cool kids are the smart kids. In school, it's cool if you're smart. If you're like blowing off your work, whatever, that's not cool. It's your problem.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that like the cafes in Singapore have signs that say no studying, because everybody comes there to study. They're like, come on, you kids, quit studying all the time. No place is perfect, but I thought that Singapore would encourage a kid to make the smarter choices instead of the I'm gonna fuck off and
Cool
get high
choices.
and just play video games and then after 18, whatever he wants. But those would have been my choices to help shape his environment in a way that I thought. But and so we did do it partway. So when he was 8, we moved to Oxford, England.
Yep.
It felt like a great choice, except his mom hated it, and then COVID hit. And remember, this was one of the only COVID-free places, so we came back here in COVID times. But I've often regretted that decision a bit because, like you just said about seeing the spark dim a bit, I see that he had that spark when we lived in Oxford. He was going to a really good school. They were every day, not almost every day, let's say 4 days a week. He'd come home excited about what he'd learned that day. Dad, did you know?
Yeah.
And so you'd see the result of a really good school versus a bad school.
Yeah.
So then we come back here and it's just shit. It's
Yeah.
just the schools are just
Yeah.
a waste. He might as well just not even go.
Yeah.
They're not teaching him a damn thing.
Yeah.
They're getting him complete uninspired with learning. All he does is just kind of fuck around with friends and play tag and kickball and whatever.
Yeah.
And it feels like they're basically just babysitting to keep the kids out of our hair 6 hours a day.
I've had that feeling many times. We've had the girls through Montessori. There was a small stint of homeschooling during COVID as well. We were in Bali during COVID.
Oh, wow.
Then there was like a homeschooling group. They kind of had like it was like a bit of a mix between kind of Stein and Montessori. Then when we moved to Australia, this was a little while ago. There's been a couple of kind of like stop-starts trying to go back to Australia as well.
Okay.
And so then the 2 elders went to a state school, like public state school, that only lasted for a couple of weeks. Because I remember rocking up one time for like school pickup and just be like, nope, can't do this. This is not the fit right now. No judging, but this is just not us and not for the girls. And then there was a Montessori in Australia. Then they went into this, and the Steiner school is hilarious because it's like all the parents there have PTSD of like trying to get their kids into the Steiner as well, which is...
Wait, what? It's because it's really hard to get into?
It's super hard for them to get into this school. It's like the waiting list is gigantically long. Like people are putting their kids' names on like soon after they're born.
What a shame they don't just make 3 more of them then.
Exactly. That's what I said. I was just like, fantastic. And even 2 weekends ago, they had a children's festival at the school, and it was incredible. Like it was like all the kids like playing music. My eldest Arlo, she was playing violin. Then it was just like the food was fantastic. The games were fantastic. Everything was just amazing. But there was also this feel of it just lights a little bit dimmer, and I'm not loving that.
Is it just because of the local? What do you do? Is it because of the local values? Is it just value to hang out and go surfing, or what do you think it is?
Yes, and again, like the nature of each human, our eldest, she loves reading and just wants to soak anything and everything up as possible, like intellectually, like extremely stimulated. Second daughter, she's extremely athletic. And you watch her run on the beach and she was like, oh my God, like she was made for this. It's incredible to be able to watch. Rumi, she's 4, 5. So like we're seeing her personality come out. Noah doing 2.5. And so we've really been thinking about, there's this 2 to 11. Our eldest I feel like she's really wanting to have some grounding as well. Like this is my place. I remember being in Bali actually, them coming home from school and then being upset and then talking to them through it. And they were like, oh, everybody was talking about like where they were from, and they didn't know where they were from.
Wow.
Our eldest was born in Australia. The 3 others were born in Bali. And
Where are you?
then they're like, we're Australian, but we've lived here. We lived in Dubai, we lived in Bali. And it was like, and they didn't know where they were from. And I was like, oh my God, like I've not done a good enough job for you to feel like rooted and connected and kind of like, this is my stake in the ground. And then our feeling right now is our eldest is wanting to have this groundedness. These are my friends. This is my community.
Okay,
And her
yeah.
being able to have that social growth now as well. So then our thoughts are like, are we missing the window of moving somewhere else right now?
Right, because if she wants to stay in one place, now's the time to choose what that place is.
Yeah. Yeah.
hmm
So that's one of the questions.
What's in your top list of considerations?
Oh my God, I feel like,
I'm happy to nerd out about this. I love this subject.
So I have wanted a year. My mother's side's Chilean. My first language was Spanish. So I was like,
What? Were you born there?
No, I was not born there. My mother was.
Okay.
And I've wanted to live in a Spanish speaking country for quite some time. I love the Arabic, love the Indonesian. And I was like, dude, is there a Spanish chapter now that's there as well? We've tossed up the idea of Dubai again as well. My wife has really thought like all about Portugal or Spain and being like in Europe. And again, like Europe, because we can duck off anywhere and everywhere so easily. Like, oh my God, that's incredible. We've even then talked about America. Is there like somewhere, do you mean visit like Austin or California or something like that as well for a short period of time?
A lot of Spanish speakers there.
Yeah. Spanish speakers there, but also like connections being around. And so I'll swing this back. Have you felt tall poppy syndrome being here? Is that
Trick question because I'm physically here, but I'm socially not.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
don't. Last night I was trying to decide whether to go to the Deadpool movie or not.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't gone to a movie in a long time. So the way I was describing it to a friend, it's a rated R movie, so I can't go with my kid.
Right.
So either I go with my kid or I go alone. And I joked, I was like, because those are the only two options. I'm in New Zealand. I don't know anybody here. Technically, I know people, but I've never clicked with the local scene. So if there is a tall poppy thing here, I don't feel it because I'm a total outsider.
Okay. So I very much felt when I first moved to Dubai, I was like, oh, wow, tall poppy really is a thing. But then especially...
Wait, because you didn't feel it there?
No, because I didn't like, I think it was maybe just being in Australia, living in Australia. I was like a fish in water. I was the last one to know I was in water. And then when I left and moved to Dubai, I was like, oh my God, people are like wanting to help and prosper and like, and then when I remember I went to the States for the first time for work stuff. And then I was like, oh my God, people are like, oh, you've got to meet this person. You've got to do this. And I was just like, this is incredible. I love this. There's a real sense of a lifting, rising tide lifts all ships.
Right. Okay.
So sorry. And then the questions of where to live right now is there are many.
Okay. You're right. See, these places, okay, I almost moved to Portugal. In fact, I tried moving to Portugal. In fact, I did all the paperwork and became a legal resident of Portugal.
Yeah.
We spent a month in Lisbon, not knowing it was going to be a month. We thought that we were moving there, put our kid into the best international school in Lisbon. And then after a month, I couldn't handle it anymore because to me, I might be wrong, but my impression was Portugal has a hopelessness built into the culture. It's this kind of Catholic fatalism, also from being in a relatively poor country. This kind of, it's in Portuguese, the phrase is, o que posso fazer? What can you do? The trains aren't running today. They're broken. O que posso fazer? I'm trying to get a permit to build a porch on my house, but I can't do it unless you give a bribe to the mayor. O que posso fazer? It's like, shit's broken. What can you do? It's like, that's cute if you're having a vacation there, but if your kid's going to grow up there and you're choosing the culture they're going to adopt and feel that it's authentic for them.
Yeah.
This is authentic. These things get into their soul. And so I didn't want that hopelessness in his soul. But yeah, that I don't know if America's still that way. Maybe that this go-getter, hey, I can connect you with somebody that can help you do what you want. I know a guy.
Sorry, the feeling that I literally have had for the last 18 months as well, since moving back to Australia, is I haven't found my people.
Really?
I feel very like it's just me.
Because I saw you in that event, it seemed like these are your people, but they're not there most of the time.
Exactly right. Yeah. Very much feel like what you just said was like, oh, I'm here physically, but I'm not here. I'm like, oh, I feel exactly the same.
Okay.
Totally. And that's why I think there is such ease for me to be like, I just jump on a plane to go be with other people that I want to be able to spend time with.
Yeah.
And that's just the way I do it. I guess.
Yeah. Which, if you're going to live that way, then yeah, there are more strategic places to do that than down under. That's how I feel here. It's like, well, it's about the worst place on earth for me to be, but what does worst place on earth means? It just means an extra 10 hours in the air, you know? I mean, that's the only difference between being here and being in Singapore or Dubai. It's just an extra 10 hours in the air.
It's true.
Anyway,
Have you gotten closer to where for and how the
for me,
situation panned
for
out?
me, it's decided because, okay, so even though his mom and I broke up when he was 2 years old, we stayed legally married. This is another one of those, if you release it, we stayed legally married because we knew that this wasn't our final place. We knew that we were going to stay in New Zealand until he was 6 or 7, get citizenship, and then figure out where to really live. So it was a long debate, years-long debate of where that would be. I wanted Singapore. She wanted New York City. Then we did Portugal. Then we didn't like it. Then we considered other places. Finally, we went to London. It felt almost right.
Yeah.
We went to Oxford, England. We went, yes, this is it. We agreed on Oxford, became legal residents of UK. I bought a house. I got a dog.
Oh, wow.
And we were literally 1 block away from the best school in England, where if you get into that school, you're a shoe-in to Eton College, which means you're a shoe-in to Oxford University.
Yeah.
And he got into that school, maybe because we were a block away.
Yeah.
So it's like my kid was set for life, education-wise. He was going to have the best education. I physically loved living there. Oxford is small and intellectual and right next to rolling countryside and forests and relatively flat, so lots of great cycling. I loved physically living there. I like English weather. I like English people. But his mother hated it, and then COVID hit. And so suddenly the school was closed, the airport was closed, she was miserable. So it's like, we came back here, and I'm a little sad about it. I think that it would have been really good for him to stay there. But here's the key point. We stayed legally married because I was always the one that could qualify for the investor visa.
Yeah.
Most countries will let you invest $5 million and become a legal resident.
Yeah.
So we stayed legally married so that she could come in as my dependent spouse.
Yeah.
Once COVID hit and we moved back here, we finally got legally divorced. So now no more moving. So that's it. So even though I want to go anywhere else, we can't.
I think there is a beauty behind not actually having the option.
Yes.
That's what comes up for me.
It's like, oh my God, the world is a blank slate. The world's your oyster. It's all up to you. It's like, okay,
Terrifying.
there's some things that aren't. So
we had let's call it 5-6 years ago, there was this ongoing conversation between Lauren and I of like, where do we live? Where do we live? And I remember coming to the point, and she had the same, but I think I voiced it first, where I was just like, I'm tired of this conversation. And then I heard somebody say, which I really liked, and again, I think this is kind of like the useful or true, where it's like, you don't try and make the right decision, make the decision right.
Ooh, okay. Good one. Catchy.
And I think it works until it doesn't work as well, that kind of that sort of phrase. But I think it was the case of like, we were just constantly talking about, what about here? What about there? And then it was always like, when we would travel anywhere, it was always like, well, what about here? This is good. And they're like looking at real estate and they're like, this is fantastic. And what about the schools? And what about this situation? Who are the other people and the vibe and all of this? And it was just like, could we not just be in a place and just enjoy it for what it is without us having to question, because we can live anywhere. And it is amazing. I'm truly grateful for it. But it's also, I feel like I'm missing out on the now because we're constantly asking that question.
On that note then, for what it's worth, I meet a lot of people from a lot of countries.
Thank you for the water.
And Australia is the only country where I hear almost no complaints. The people generally like it and are happy with it. Every other country, it feels like, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, has just been grumble, this place is going to hell, this place is shit. Except Australians who are like, man, it's a good place. It's a good country, pretty good government, good healthcare, good weather, good people. Could be a little smarter, could be a little more ambitious, but generally good. And I think Australia is maybe the only country where I hear no complaints. But on the other hand, the other one where I hear a lot of people very happy about it is Dubai. But you've already been in Dubai. You already know it better than I do. But I don't know. I was just in Argentina a month ago and meeting with a guy who's unhappy living in Buenos Aires. And he was wondering about where else he could live that would fit his life ethic better. And I was steering him towards Australia because I said, I told him the same thing I just told you. It's like, this is the place where I've heard the least complaints. People seem to be the happiest with it. So, point is, you could just say, fuck it. I don't know if this is the best place, but it's a damn good place and we're already here.
Yeah.
So that's that.
Yeah, that's what it really was.
Seth Godin, rewinding 1 hour.
Yeah.
He writes about education a lot. And in one of the things he's written about education called Stop Stealing Dreams, he said he feels it's important to just stay in public school. He said, education is not what happens in that building from 9 to 3. Education is what happens every hour they're awake. Most of that is not from 9 to 3. So education is what happens from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. or 9 p.m., not just from 9 to 3. And so he said his more than one kid, I don't know how many, his kids went to public school only, and he just really focused on their education after 3 p.m.
I love that because I feel like it's so easy to give up responsibility for that and be like, no, you're over there and you do that there. Where it's like, no, we still very much hold that responsibility, especially for every hour they're not there. What are we doing together? Yeah, I really like that. God damn, that was good.
So yeah, you could just kind of say, yeah, fuck it, news is amazing. Just quality of life, all that kind of stuff.
It is. It's so incredible, and it's such a beautiful place, and it's like, it's quiet, but also, if I could just be real, it's so white.
Yeah.
And that's like, I want
after coming from Dubai and Bali.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I want them to have culture, again, different perspectives of how to live. Like, how can I do this differently? There is that case, well, what's damn, it's white.
There is that city things. I mean, you could go to Melbourne or Sydney. Where did you grow up?
Sydney.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, both of those are quite multicultural, right?
Yeah.
Especially now more so than when you were born. I mean, think of the experience of your kids growing up and learning to speak Mandarin while living in Sydney or Melbourne or something like that. Just tapping into the Chinese community.
They could speak Bahasa better than we could.
Really?
Yeah.
Aww.
They can understand okay with Spanish. They got some Bahasa under them. The two oldest are getting into German at the moment as well.
I love that to refer to the Indonesian language, we just say the word language in Indonesian.
Language. Yeah, exactly. Bahasa is just
they could speak language, but they speak language. By the way, my kid has been nerding out on Indonesian history lately for some reason on YouTube. He finds it fascinating.
Yeah.
So he's asked for that his next school holiday in January, he wants to go to Indonesia.
Amazing.
And I said, okay, if on the condition that we learn to speak some Indonesian before we go. So I got Pimsleur's Indonesian, and we just started yesterday. We did 30 minutes of practicing Indonesian. I don't remember any of it right now, but we will. Anyway, I'm going to actually, it's funny to think of an Indonesian itinerary and deliberately downgrading Bali because it will be so not Indonesian. You know what I mean?
Totally know what you mean. Totally. Like there are some fantastic areas. There are some real gems in there as well. Like, for example, I remember we took the girls to forgetting the name of this temple. It's like a cleansing temple, and you actually go through this ritual of going through the water and all of this, and like you cleanse yourself through it. It's miraculous. There is some real good stuff, but again, I don't believe Bali is the true, authentic, like Indonesian taste.
Did you go to Borobudur?
No.
Oh, you never did?
No.
Oh, I just found out last night because I was starting to plan out where we might go.
Yeah.
When I went to Borobudur, you know what it is, right?
Not really.
Oh, you've seen pictures of it a million times. It is, I think, the world's largest Hindu temple or something like that.
Yes.
It's like the size of like 4 city blocks, and it's near Yogyakarta.
Yes.
And the deal is that there was one single little lodge where you could stay. So I think it opens to the public at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
But there's one lodge on the grounds where if you stayed in that lodge only, because it was already in the grounds of Borobudur, they would wake you up at 4:30 in the morning and take you on a walk in the dark to the top of Borobudur, up all the steps. So you'd get to the top at 5 a.m. and you'd have it to yourself for 5 a.m.
Oh, wow.
So I did that in 2010. It was amazing, magical experience to be like, just a little flashlight in the dark, and you get up and then the sun starts coming up and you're already in this giant thing. And the fact that I was able to just do it by myself. I mean, they let us up, but then it's just like, you generally just follow, but you're free to just go wherever.
Yeah.
And I'm mentioning all this because I just found out last night that tourists damaged it too much. So they shut it completely to all tourists. And only last year in 2023, they reopened it, but only in 1-hour guided sessions, only with a tour group. And you're not allowed to wander off on your own. You must stay with the guide. And they don't do it until 9 a.m. And it's like, huh?
Wow.
Like all the magic of
You got-
going there
yeah,
at 4 a.m. was like,
yeah.
you're not allowed anymore?
Yeah.
Well, it's a shame. People screwed it up. Anyway,
Yeah, I think of like Machu Picchu and how different
Right.
that experience would be as well if
Right.
you had that scenario.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay. So wait, hold on. Spain, America. Sorry, let's see. Did we close the tangent about living places with your kids? I don't know. So I mean, there's the Spanish language, but they can speak Spanish anywhere.
Sure.
Did
They
we-
could speak Spanish at home
right.
if we spoke Spanish.
right.
Like I grew up, my parents were 17 when they had me when I came along.
Mhm.
And so I grew up in a household with my uncle, my auntie, and my 2 grandparents as well. So everybody's speaking
Wow.
Spanish.
Okay.
And I loved that.
Mhm.
Like I looked back and I was really fortunate, really grateful of that whole experience.
Yeah.
And then I think for me, I was like, why am I not doing that at home? Like we can do
Mhm.
that at home and just be like, no, tonight we only speak Spanish.
Mhm.
And then, or like tonight is only German. And I'm
Mhm.
absolutely terrible. And so I think that's in case
Wait,
of,
is your wife German or why German?
no, it's not, they're just learning German at school. And I was like,
They are?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
alright.
yeah. I was just like, this would be fantastic. Maybe it's a start in school, they're speaking German.
Oh, okay, that
So-
makes more sense.
Yeah, it's a really good point that you bring up.
I still think a lot about where my kid and I talk about, like, if we don't wish death upon his mother, but if she did, she's the only thing holding us to New Zealand right now.
Yeah.
If she died of a heart attack tonight, I think he and I would pack up and go and never come back.
Does he have a yearning for somewhere else specifically?
Well, Japan in theory,
Yeah.
more than in practice. We've been there to visit twice. He's still enamored with it. He also really likes Dubai. I took him to UAE and Oman a little bit
Yeah.
on a school holiday last year.
Oman's gorgeous.
Yeah, we just went to what is it called?
Oh,
Did you do the overnight boats at the tip of, the
No,
little
but I
tip
know
of
what you're talking
Oman,
about. Yeah,
where you go
yeah,
past
yeah.
Ras Al Khaimah and
yeah.
yeah, I think he and I would just go do like a homeschooled couple of
Oh,
years
that's
of traveling
cool.
around until he found a place. We'd just stay. Oh, no, you know what he wants right now? There is a school called the Think Global School. Do you know about this?
No.
Not that you want to send your girls to private school. I'm sorry, boarding school.
Yeah.
Think Global School is a collection of 40 or 50 kids and 10 teachers. It's a boarding school that goes to a new location every 3 months and they all go together. So it's like 3 months in Bosnia, working with it, and now 3 months in Korea, and then 3 months in Greenland, and then 3 months in Panama, and then 3 months in Finland, and then 3 months in Indonesia.
That's incredible.
And they'll tell you on the website, the Think Global School, they'll show you the 2025, 2026 agenda, where they will be. You apply a year in advance. It starts, because they're based in New York, they call it grades instead of year. They start
Yeah.
in grade 10, which is usually age 15.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So my kid's
Yeah.
12 now. So he desperately wants to do this. And he really wants me to come with, which I'd be very open to. So officially I could not. They don't want parents there.
You become a teacher?
I don't want to be. I thought about that for like 10 seconds. I'm like, fuck that. A job for the first time since 1992? No, thank you. But hey, they can't stop me from being in the country at the same time as him. Living the next town over, seeing him every weekend or something.
Oh, that would be rad.
And that's exactly what I want out of life. And so does he. So he is now at the age of 12, super inspired to get his academics up, to get into Think Global School. So
Oh,
that at the
that's
age of
really
14,
cool.
15, he could,
Okay, sorry. So you actually saying that one thing with like Wi-Fi have wanted to do is essentially just have homes around the world and be able to move and to be able to have friends be able to obviously live in the homes at the same time and like do them really nicely. And it's always a case like I want it to feel like when you get to a place, it's just like putting on a glove.
Yeah.
Like, you know where the good coffees, you know where to get healthy food, like it's all done properly.
Yeah.
That's something I feel like I would just love to be able to put together.
Besides Noosa, do you own a home in anywhere?
We've got a few villas in Bali.
A few.
Yeah, we've got a few. Well,
Are
actually,
they
I just
profitable?
got 2. Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Yeah, so why I'm actually literally flying there at the end of this week is we've just got 2 new ones that are just getting built. And so we've got doing a bunch of places in Bali at the moment. This place, I'd love to also get a place in like the Gold Coast of Australia as well, because we love popping down there. It was like, and so it was essentially like all the places that we love to go to. Why don't we just like have an amazing home, and then we can just share that with the people who want to share it with. And then I've never thought of the schooling and education being able to move along with that as well. That's really cool.
See, you already know the Arab hospitality. This is new to me. Did I tell you how I stayed in the Burj Khalifa?
No.
Oh, okay. So I'd never been to the Middle East until 14 months ago. But I was going through Dubai on my way to Switzerland. So instead of a 3-hour layover, I made it a 3-day layover. It's like, well, I might as well get to see this place that people talk about. So the only person I'd ever met that lives in that region was a Saudi dude that took me out to dinner once in Oxford, and just kind of doing the hospitable thing. He said, my friend, if you ever come to Saudi Arabia, you stay at my home. We have a home by the river. My place is your place. And I said, well, thank you. And I was thinking, I'm never going to Saudi Arabia. Fuck that. But here I was going through Dubai for a few days, and I've already told you the punchline, but I emailed him and saying, hey, I'm going to Dubai for my first time. By chance, will you be in the area? Do you want to meet up? And he said, my friend, cancel your hotel. He said, you're staying at my home in the Burj Khalifa. I went, oh, shit. You stay at the Burj Khalifa? Great. And I said, it would be great to see you. And he said, oh, no, I won't be there. He said, I live in Riyadh, but I own an apartment in the Burj Khalifa. My uncle will pick you up at the airport and give you the key. You stay as long as you want. And so I did. And have you been inside?
No.
Oh, the apartments are, the apartments are basic apartments. I was really surprised at the price. To get a nice 2-bedroom apartment in the Burj Khalifa is $700,000 US. You would think it would be like at least twice as much. It seemed.
Totally.
Yeah. So because there's just so many of them, there's like 200 for sale right now.
I'm trying to think how much the place in like the Palm we were staying at was. It was more than that.
It was
incredible.
Yeah, I think it like about 2 million dirhams.
Yeah.
KED.
Yeah.
So it was amazing to be so central, also connected to the Dubai Mall, which is kind of everybody's happy to meet up in the Dubai Mall, I think. You got that impression?
Yeah.
The people watching there is amazing, because everybody from around the world, whether it's sunburnt Brits or Nigerians in the big green robes, or the, Sikhs or trashy Russians are all passing through the Dubai Mall. And then if you live there, you have exclusive access to the residents only floor at the very top, which is it's kind of like this. It's a beautiful, quiet lounge.
Wow.
On the 140th something floor, just, free tea and coffee and juice and whatever.
That's so cool.
Residents only. It's a library. It's like a kind of whisper quiet. Fuck. And so, okay, so here's the real point. I had a good time there for 3 days. And by good time, I mean like, same thing you've felt many times is, wow, oh my God, I could live here. And my whole life I've skewed more and more and more multicultural. Moving from Hinsdale, Illinois to Boston was like, oh wow, not everybody's white, Moving to New York City of, oh my gosh, wow, people are from everywhere. Moving to Singapore, whatever, like I feel very comfortable, like everything's right in the world when I'm in a multicultural place.
Yeah.
If I'm in a Noosa style, everybody's white.
Yeah.
It's like a little uneasy.
Itchy.
Yeah. That's good. And I don't like it. I don't like being in places where everybody's white.
Yeah.
So in a way, the more multicultural, the better. And so when I went to Dubai for my first time last year, I was like, heaven, I've arrived.
Yeah.
This is the most multicultural place in the whole world. And I was like, this is it. This is my culmination, my end game, or whatever you like. If I've been skewing more and more and more international my whole life, Dubai is the finish line. You have now arrived at the most international intersection of cultures in the whole world, right? And so I just felt, oh my God, this is it. Like, this is my eventual home. travel-wise, what a beautiful home base, the world's busiest airports. It's directly in between India, Africa, Europe. I don't really care about the Americas, right? So for the places I want to go in life, Dubai is the middle. It just makes logical sense. I don't even care about the tax benefits. Who cares? But like
Well, it's 9% now anyway. So
okay. But even just, personal too? I thought well, anyway, whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it just felt like, okay, I'm going to live here. So I'm actually still right now talking to people that live there, asking their advice about living there. And I'm still assuming that in 6 years when my kid doesn't need me here anymore, I'll probably become a legal resident of UAE.
Love it.
And go for an apartment there. But like you said, this is the reason I got excited and I started telling you this whole thing. Here's my dream, is to own a nice apartment.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the Burj Khalifa or nearby. And because it's the world's busiest airport, just let my circle of friends know, even if it's like extended circle of friends, that I've got a place there. I'm only there maybe a third of the time. The other 2/3 of the time, I actually have an organized procedure so that you say you're coming, I have a guy that will come get you, bring you in the place. I have like the housekeeper that will like come. And if somebody's coming, well then earlier that day, I'll get the place stocked with some fresh coffee and some fresh fruit in the fridge.
Yeah.
Clean it out. That's the guy that I stayed at his place. This is what he didn't do. I walked into his place. It was like something had rotted and like died in there. And I was like, oh God, it actually stank so bad. Anyway, but like I'd make sure that it was nice. And then I'm just sharing you my full dream here. I'd have a couple favorite restaurants that I'd say, anybody that comes to stay with me, you must go here. And then I'd work out a deal with that restaurant owner. Anytime my friends come in, don't tell them you're doing this, but don't let them pay. Put it on my tab so that when they go to pay the bill, just say, oh, no. Mr. Sivers took care of this already. And to just give them that Arab hospitality. It's like, I'm not Arab, but that is a wonderful thing about Arab culture, isn't it? That like
so warm,
so welcoming, so heart driven. And so I'd love to represent that just a little bit. Anyway, that's my dream.
No, I absolutely love that, because with our main villa in Bali, what I find so interesting when I go there, like for next week, I know when I land, I know who's picking me up from the airport, and it's the same process. Our housekeeper, Kidek, when we get there, she's got the lemon juice that I like in the fridge. There's the fruit there. There's this one cafe. I'm known as like Mr. Chris. I swear to God, I must have put like so many of their kids through college. Like, and it's like a quick WhatsApp message. They'll have the food delivered in 20 to 30 minutes really easily. My massage therapist, like I've already messaged him and booked him in for 4 times during the week. Like all of those processes I absolutely love. And then when we had some friends recently, I was like, let's organize it. So it's just really easy fitting in. You decide what you want your schedule to be, but having it really like a glove just coming into that situation. I love that you said that, because I was like, that convenience factor for me, I just froth on. Really appreciate that stuff.
And helping turn visitors onto the local culture.
Yes.
So, like I said, the one thing about one restaurant where they wouldn't pay the bill, but I'd also imagine that I'd have a guy, like a tour guide, that I would just have a special thing with it. When my friends were there, I'd pay him to like take them around, to let me take you to this little cafe.
Yes.
Not the main one that the tourists go to, but the little one here. Let me take you here.
Because for me, it was like, from living there for 9 years, you learn all of those little nuances and the good places and the not so good places, and just the beauty of those little secret spots where you can just give that somebody like straight away, and it's just, oh my God, like you get the immense experience out of it rather than trialing out what isn't fantastic.
Do you, when traveling, when not travel, but like having the idea of having homes like this, do you have a gym in your home, or do you always find a place with a local gym?
Always find a place with a local gym.
Okay.
Just to get me out.
Okay.
And probably, to be honest as well, somewhat social. Like next week, there's this like, I swear to God, I think it's more of a wardrobe, but I can call it a home office, for example. So I'll work from there. If I didn't go to the gym, I go there in the morning for a sauna and an ice bath, and I come back, work. Then I'll go do a workout, and then I'll go for a beach walk, maybe get a massage, have dinner, go to bed. So if I didn't go to the gym, I wouldn't talk to any human being face to face. And I think that's probably the reason why I probably, at least to like, all right, Chris, get out. Otherwise I can be too much of a hermit. Like I could just happily sit inside of, do you know what I mean? Home and just be by myself the entire time. I was like, I think I should probably talk to some human being, not through Zoom.
Right. It's funny. This trip, where are you staying?
It's like 5 minutes walk from here. It's really close.
Good. Yeah. Most of Wellington is 5 minutes from here. It's only we're 240,000 people here.
Wow.
That's it.
Wow.
Anyway, and that's in the extended city. So yeah, most of Wellington is 5 minutes from Te Papa here. Why do I say it? Oh, I say it because the worst part of town that I hate is called Courtney Place, which is just like 2 blocks south of here. And that's where the main Les Mills gym is that I used to be a member of. And I just fucking hated coming to this part of town to go to that gym. And it's also so dense that if I were to drive, you'd have to go into that parking garage where you have to drive up 7 stories before you finally find your space, and then walk down 7 stories, go to the gym. And like, I used to get so cranky that I'd be in there lifting and just like kind of angry. And so best $1,000 I spent was a squat rack at home. I was like, oh, so much better. Now I can just like watch a movie or put on classical music and just have it be kind of like peaceful thing I do. But I did start to wonder about this. Like, if I were to think it would be nice, like in a place like Dubai, I assume that every big apartment building has a nice gym.
They do.
Hopefully with free weights, not just the
Yeah, no. So I went there. I'll tell the story to it. So my wife and I just found out that she was pregnant with our first daughter, unplanned. And then 3 days later, I got an email from a guy that I'd met. He was Aussie and he was living in Dubai, but I kept bumping into him doing different courses all around the world. And then he sent me an email. I was like, hey, I've got an opportunity for us to open this really high-end gym in Dubai. We had 2 McKinsey partners that were investors wanting to support us to do this. And I was in kind of like next to the bedroom where like a cable office kind of was. My wife was in the lounge room and I was like, Loz, do you want to move to Dubai? And she was, yeah. And I was like,
yeah, that was easy.
And I just wrote back to him. I was like, all right, like, let's jump on and have a Skype back then. And then, so Lauren was 6 months pregnant. I sold my car, gave all my clients away, sold the house, did everything.
This was in Sydney?
This is in Sydney.
Okay.
Lauren moved in with her parents. And so then I went to Dubai. I had 3 months to get the personal training business up and running, find our home, get everything sorted, fly back to Sydney. Lauren gave birth. Then we all moved over.
What year was this around? 11 years ago.
Yeah.
So 2013?
Yeah.
Wow.
End of 2012. And it was horrendous because I was just working, like I would wake up at 4 a.m. So I could see like a 6 a.m. client, work all the way through. But like we went there to open a really high-end gym, but there was so much red tape. Everything was slowing us down for so long. I was still building the personal training business on the side. I had some trainers working for me. So actually the one smart thing that I did was the personal training business I had in Sydney at the time. I kind of poached this guy to then run it. I was like, can you just run everything that I've built? So I was working through commercial gyms. I had gotten other trainers to essentially, I had this overflowing clientele. And so I'd get other trainers to essentially fill those sessions for me. And I'd take this clip of all of their sessions. And it was throughout a Fitness First. And they hated it because they had never had something like this happen inside of their gym model before. So I was kind of like this freelancer running all these personal trainers, earning money from it and doing all this funny stuff. So I got this guy, I was like, can you run the business for me? I'm going overseas. So I still earned an income from this, getting it all up and running. It worked fantastically. He was a fantastic, beautiful guy. And then getting everything set up and moving to Dubai was just, I think I was so scarred and leathered from that whole period of like just having to like grit my teeth through it the entire time. And then knowing what Lauren had to do of like giving birth, And then moving to Dubai, we knew nobody.
The loneliness. That's
That it
early
was
motherhood
funny.
too.
Yeah. And so we actually moved in with this one guy. I owe him the world. His name's Chris Ferguson. And I genuinely owe him so much because he allowed us to move in with him. And he was this single bachelor, financial advisor, owned a couple of Porsches, had the whole entire life, and then had us move in. Do you know what I mean? This young couple with his little baby staying in their spare room. I slept on his couch for 3 months when I first got there to get everything up and running, and he allowed us to stay in his place until we could like get on our feet, find a proper place. We had to like do some shifty things to be able to like get our first apartment there as well, because we didn't have our UAE residency and all that stuff set up at the time and all of this other stuff. And so it was very much a case of getting everything set up in Dubai was just super hard. It was rough. I can't believe Laura and I stayed through it.
Yeah.
Relationship wise as well. Like I was blown away that we were able to do that. And then obviously the gym never went through. It was just taking way too long. And then it was just a case of, fellas, this isn't coming together. They also wanted to change the business model in the last minute. They were kind of wanting to go to a more of a commercial style gym where I was like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it really high end.
Mm-hmm.
We've got like, I had a couple of sheikhs as clients that I'd been able to pick up just from being
Sounds
there.
like that would have fit with the local culture to go super
Absolutely.
exclusive.
That's what I was thinking and believing back in the time as well. And for me, it was just very much the case of this is not working, but I was training clients throughout all of the different gyms that were just in their apartments, like in apartment buildings.
Yeah.
And they were incredible. They were incredible this whole entire time. Sorry, it was long-winded.
No, it was wonderful.
Went around, but
I forgot where that tangent started. But
these apartment gyms were absolutely amazing to be able to so easily just go like in the elevator, downstairs, incredible gym to be able to train out of.
You know, that minimalist thing where, to me, it's a bit of a minimalist daydream, this idea of a simple 2-bedroom apartment. She might even just go, 2-bedroom, because 1 bedroom is just my office. You sleep in one room, you work in the other, and then you have the middle room where guests come. I don't want to have people stay in my place. I used to think that was cool, but actually the truth is, I want to just wake up at 5 a.m. I don't have to tiptoe in my own place.
I agree.
So, so I don't think I would actually have guests, and I don't think I want to live in a big estate of a house in order to have guests. Fuck it, I'll just put up my guests somewhere else. Anyway, the simplicity of a little 2-bedroom apartment in a modern city where things are taken care of for you, and a thing that we don't have here in New Zealand, which is just the ability to just have any food just delivered to you, and like to just have a housekeeper come in and take care of things. Like, you know, I daydream about how nice that would be. But at the same time, I'll probably just continue to own. I own 10 hectares of land just north of Wellington here, where I'm putting a cabin, and I'll probably just own that forever because fuck it, you know. Things get all pear-shaped in the rest of the world, you know, World War III or another fucking pandemic or something, just come back here.
There's a lot of people hedging their bets for New Zealand for that.
Yeah, it's a good remote place. That said, it's taken a weird turn lately. I don't know if a lot of the stuff I said about Portugal is starting to happen here. I was surprised to find out that we've got a lower GDP per person here in New Zealand than Portugal.
Oh, wow.
So when you think of New Zealand, you think of the lush geography of it, but the economy is not that great. We're having the biggest brain drain now since 2012 to Australia. Everybody's going to Australia because just jobs pay better.
Wow.
I think the cost of living is something like 20% higher, but jobs pay 40% more.
Wow.
So most people are just looking at it going like, and the biggest group of people that are leaving are the medical. So all the doctors and nurses are leaving.
Yeah.
And so if I want to get an appointment with my GP now, and this is the same with everybody, it's about a 3-week wait to see your GP.
What?
And there's some hospitals that are just saying you can't accept any new patients. So people that are just like have a cold or just need their medicine refilled, they're going to the emergency room and waiting 9 hours because it's better than waiting 3 weeks to see their GP. And she's like, things are kind of a mess here right now.
Wow.
It's I know that New Zealand is often portrayed as a paradise, but it's kind of fucked up lately. And that's just kind of happened in the last 10 years. Yeah.
With the way you like to look at and question things the way that they are done, do you know Tucker Mack?
Yes. A little. I mean, I've read his stuff years ago, yes.
Okay, so I had I did a podcast interview with him at his
Wait.
ranch in Austin last year.
Oh, cool. Okay, Tucker Max. That was a name I was not expecting to hear.
Tucker. So the reason why I think he just popped into my head was, I forgot who had a mutual friend connect us, and then I was in Austin, and then went to go interviewed him at his ranch. He's got a ranch just outside of Austin, gorgeous, massive, and do you know what I mean? He's like got all his ammunition, got his guns, arsenal.
Oh, for
ready to
real?
rock. For real.
Okay.
But very much, he can really articulate exactly why. Like if I use the word like sovereignty.
Oh,
with
sorry.
him.
We're putting this in the context of the people escaping to New
Yes.
Zealand. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So that's why it popped up. And I was like, oh, like with the way you think of things doing differently, the way things can be done differently, the way you want to do things differently, when it comes to how you want to live your life moving forward, and with when people talk about like the doom and gloom of what possibly can be, where does your mind go? Because I thought Tucker popped into my head because I was like, oh, he's like, I'm ready for the apocalypse. I'm being hyperbolic right now, but I'm ready for the apocalypse, do you know what I mean, for this to be able to happen. And he's very much being able to spend amazing time with his children as well. Like he just built a school like just up the road. Their kids were like learning to be able to like field dress animals and do all like this really cool stuff like that way as well. I was just thinking like, how do you think of all of this?
I'm mostly done, is the real end. Earlier, I said I was really disappointed that we left Oxford, England. When I rationalize it to myself, I say, well, on the plus side, growing up here in New Zealand is a good place for my kid to learn hunting, skinning, survival skills, camping, flying, learning to fly a small airplane, sailing, and maybe with the way that computers are developing faster and faster, whether you call it AI or call it something else, maybe in his lifetime, the stuff that he would learn at Oxford is going to be less and less valuable, less and less needed, whereas learning to survive in the forest or just fly an airplane or sail is going to be more needed, more valuable in his lifetime. We just have computers do the trigonometry for us.
Yeah.
You don't need to memorize that anymore. That's handled. So I think, oh, okay, I could make the best of it. So it did make me think differently about his education here. Instead of just being mad at his school for not being a very good school, I think, never mind school. Let's get you signed up for sailing classes and scuba diving and survival. Anyway, but I think people always historically like to think they're in the end of times. You know, any kind of Armageddon shit that people talk about. Come on, realistically, how long would that last? A week or two? You know, that shit might be crazy for a week or two until it settles down. That said, I like my 10 hectares of land where it's off grid. And so I'm got 2 giant 30,000 liter water tanks and gonna get a whole buttload of solar panels with a big giant battery backup. And just generally not need the infrastructure and just kind of keep a big freezer stacked full of maybe 2 weeks of food and a ton of beans. But then there's the thing about just lowering your expectations. So really, I just think if I've got a can of beans and some protein powder, I can physically survive. And if I've got a bunch of books and I'm in a comfortable enough environment where I've got a fire and some wood and good insulation, so depending on what season, well, I mean, that can last me a few months. And then come on, what's going to happen? You know, I've got water, warmth, something to eat, something to do. I'm good. You know, so I think of it like that. I mean, the guns thing, that's so Texas. You know, I guess if in Texas, maybe if everybody else has got a gun, maybe you need a gun. I don't know if that would be so much of the thing here. But also on that note, though, I liked the tiny bit of prepper advice I heard long ago, which is if the shit hits the fan, you don't want to be the guy alone in your cabin with the guns. You want to be the guy with plumber and electrician skills that the neighborhood needs. That you want to be everybody's friend, not everybody's enemy.
That's really well said.
Anyway, I guess that's the way I think about it. But the truth is I just don't. That I like geopolitically being in New Zealand where what Putin does or whatever just doesn't matter to us down here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You haven't gone into the hunting side of things?
Not yet. Well, he's got a taste for it.
Yeah.
I don't think he actually wants to kill animals, but there are wild boar in our forest.
Well, I
He
only
came face to
asked.
face with one
Oh,
3 minutes
really?
away. He's like, they stared each other down, and as soon as the boar looked away, he ran away.
Mm.
But he had his hand on his knife ready. Yeah, I knew.
I went on my first hunting trip maybe 4 months ago
Okay, where?
in Austin.
In Austin, okay.
In Austin. And I've got another one booked. Actually, I'm going to Hawaii in December for a hunting trip as well.
Okay.
And I loved it.
So who does a hunting trip entail? Somebody leads the way and tells you what to do?
Yeah, so this guy, phenomenal human being, Mansell Denton's his name, that runs it. He calls it like sacred hunting.
Mhm.
And it was incredible. It was a small group of guys, no phones, zero technology for doing the full whatever days that we're out there with, hunting in the morning, hunting in the evening, spending time during the day, and like going through that process of stalking, hunting, dealing, shooting. I'd got a boar and then be field dressing it, taking it back, butchering it,
Wow.
doing the whole entire thing, we
Okay.
ate its heart and its testicles that night. It's the full experience of it. I just absolutely loved it. And then, but also then having the skill set to be like, okay, like I can take a rifle, I can go out and I know fairly what to do. And like,
Mhm.
I can do everything I need. It was an incredible experience. I really loved.
Cool.
I went a
So-
little redneck.
He was there showing you what to do. So he's like, all right, Chris, now. So he
Yeah.
actually taught you how to like shoot.
I
down.
knew how to already shoot a rifle, but before we went out, we all made sure that we could do it. We could actually shoot a rifle and handle ourselves as well. He was with me. It was just when I went out one morning, he was just with me.
Mhm.
And so we went through and he like shows you what to do. And there was the hall, we like stalked it down. And then it was about 110 meters out. And he's like, all right, there they are. And he was just off my right shoulder. And I lined everything up, pulled the
Wow.
trigger, got it with one shot.
No dogs?
No dogs.
Cool.
No dogs. There was one point where it was with another guy as well. There was a bunch of boar who came around, but then the little like piglets came running towards us first, and we're like, oh my God. Like, so we like completely froze,
Mhm.
and the piglets came running up probably 25 meters away, and then they saw us and stopped, and there was like 3 of them.
Mm.
And we're like trying not to blink. And then they kind of like obviously noticed us and then jumped up, ran back to their parents, and then the whole, to me, herd
Wow.
or whatever you call it, a group of boar together,
Wow.
ran away. And I was just completely in love with the sensitivity that the animals had with their environment and their surroundings, especially the deer, because like the deer, I just feel like they just pick you up from miles away.
Yeah.
And like if it were downwind, or I was just like, oh my God, they are really onto it.
That was amazing to think about. Like, I don't know shit about this, but the tiny, tiny bit I looked into it for whatever, 20 minutes, this whole thing of needing to pay attention to the wind.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be upwind of something you're hunting.
I
It's like,
never
oh,
thought
wow.
of that either.
Then-
And then because they got like this little chalk bag out and they like squeeze this chalk bag
Right.
to give it a puff of chalk in the air to see the wind, like how strong it was and the direction it was. And at
Right.
first I was like, what on earth are you doing, man?
Yeah.
And then it obviously explained, I was like, oh my God, that makes complete sense now. I'd never previously thought about that.
So I'd like my kid. By the way, what does boar taste like?
Boar testicle tastes really like Mexican fajita meat.
Okay. Wait, you just ate the balls only?
At the night time,
Oh, okay.
one of the guys cooked his testicles and heart. The rest of the boar is actually still waiting for me back there.
So you've never eaten the rest of the boar meat?
No,
Okay.
we had deer and then the testicles of the boar
The funny thing
on
is,
the trip.
my kid talks about hunting the boar in our forest now. I'm like, how about we learn how to hunt, but don't kill the boar in our forest until we need to kill the boar in our forest? How about we just let them reproduce as much as possible? And if that day comes where you actually need to eat that boar, then you'll be ready to hunt that boar. Anyway, fishing would also be good. Yeah, that idea of like knowing how to feed yourself, knowing how to survive in the wilderness. Even like, what if some shit happened, he's on the run, whatever, there's a giant earthquake and he just runs and suddenly he's just out and whatever, he has the ability to stay all night without freezing.
I wouldn't know how to forage for food or build shelter or, oh my God.
Protein powder. The place that I get my protein powder, there's a great company here called just NZ Protein, where it's like they don't sell it through the retail stores.
Yeah,
They
okay.
just do it direct, and
Yeah.
everybody says it's really good quality. And that shit has a shelf life of a year to have. And I just think it's a very logical thing to
Stock up on.
stock up on, or just keep a constant, instead of buying a bin or a bag of protein when you need it,
Yeah.
maybe keep like 5 bags
Yeah.
and constantly take one and then get a new one. So you've always got a stockpile of the
Yeah.
4 next bags so that just in case some crazy shit happens. That's, it's not a lot of what we need to survive.
I got told, and this might be wrong, but I think there's only 3 main protein powder manufacturers in the whole world, and they all
interesting.
get distributed. The good one is in New Zealand.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you run across that fact again and find out
Let me hunt
it
that
is, let me
down.
know.
Yeah, so I know a bunch of people that were always raving about New Zealand grass-fed whey. Definitely the best.
I wonder if it's this one, because every time there was some little forum, everybody just says NZ protein, they're the
I'm
best.
sure it is.
And it's amazing to me that like I will order like a Monday at 4 p.m. and it shows up the next morning
Oh, wow.
at 9 a.m. And because they just ship it at the end of the day every day and just, anyway. All right, hold on. I want to make sure, because I could meet up again. You're here for 3 days?
Yeah, I leave like super early Thursday morning.
Oh, okay, great. All right, so we've got more time, but today I'm going to have to leave in about 1 hour to get my kid from school.
It's fine.
What
I
are some
appreciate this, Derek.
This is a blast. What are some open tangents we've got here? Or things you want to talk about?
What excites you now?
Oh, wait, so the label thing.
Yeah,
You asked me mine. What about yours? It's related to what you just asked me.
totally.
Or do you care what the label is? What is the point of that question?
Well, let me do a Derek Sivers on you then. I don't know who said this, but the quote is something like, when you name me, you negate me.
Good one.
So the less labels I can have upon myself, the better
Yeah,
that I feel.
I agree with that.
You brought up minimalist before. Have you ever heard of the minimalist challenge? Okay, so I think my wife told me this, and essentially it was like, on day 1, you get rid of 1 thing. On day 2, you get rid of 2 things. Day 3,
2 things?
Yeah, 2 things.
Wow.
And
okay.
obviously day 30 things. So it's quite a bit that you get through at the end.
I don't know if I'd have 30 things to get rid of, but okay.
Okay, good start.
Yeah.
I was actually very much the same, but being a bit of an overachiever, I was like day 1 already, okay, I started my wardrobe, got the clothes, gave it to charity. Then
It would make sense to go in reverse. The first day you give away 30 things, the next thing 29.
That's what I thought as well.
Okay,
That's
anyway.
what I thought. But it took me, I don't know, not very many days until I was like, I've got no more stuff that I can get rid of. Like once I'd gone through like wardrobe, office, kitchen, and just like the other rooms of the house, I was like, okay, we actually need this stuff now. And this is good, but like we're already quite minimalist to begin with. But then I was like, oh, okay. I started going through my to-do lists. I was like, what are the to-dos I don't need to do anymore? What are the projects that I don't want to do anymore?
Yeah.
Then I went through, what are the beliefs that I don't want to do anymore? And then I was like, what's the identities that I don't want to have anymore? And that's when I was kind of like drilling down to the essence of what are the identities that I want to have or labels that I want to have upon myself. And if I was to call myself a writer, am I doing myself a disservice at some point?
Right. So I like this snarky quip about, I don't know if I came up with it or not. What's the purpose of purpose?
No, I've never heard that. That's good.
Maybe I did come up with it. When people say, I'm looking for my purpose. Well, okay, well, what's the purpose of having a purpose? It's like, it's so that you can attach some kind of congruent narrative to what you're doing. Does having a purpose, is it like having a goal where it's helping to shape your current actions? You have to ask yourself that, like, why do you want a purpose? And so I guess it's the same thing with the label. Like for some people, maybe having a label helps guide your actions. Like, okay, I contain multitudes, but I am being a writer now. The world knows me as a writer. I'm calling myself a writer. This is what I'm doing. I know I could also be an athlete. I could also be an explorer. I could also be a fisherman, but I'm being a writer. And that's going to help guide my actions so that I can be true to my identity, my label. Or it can be just straight up marketing, which let's get a little more holistic about that word. You read Your Music and People.
Yep.
It's about being considerate to others.
Yep.
That if calling yourself a writer can just be considerate to people saying, Chris, what do you do? I'm a writer. Okay. Now they know, instead of, I'm just trying to find my way. It's like, oh, come on, man. Just give me a word. I'm not digging into your soul. I'm just trying to get on with my life here. Just give me a word to tell me what you do.
Do you think that's what people are trying to do? Is like in the series, if somebody is just to have the cultural kind of like, oh, what is it that you do? And it's like, oh, I'm a writer. I remember sitting in the sauna one time. There was this really funny Irish guy, and I was sitting next to him and someone asked him, it's like, oh, like, what do you do? And he was in the finance world or something, but he was like, I tell stories. And the other person was like, what stories do you tell? And he goes, good ones. And he goes, who do you tell them to? And he goes, anyone will listen. And I cracked, I was like thigh slapping laughing. I was like, I really just appreciated the simplicity of all of it as well. But just like, I'm just making this up. Like, I'm just like, and we are telling stories as well. And I am trying to tell good ones. And I'm really only telling them to people that will listen at the same time. So the kind of the identity that I want to have upon myself, like, I think I'm pretty agnostic to it.
Yeah, I like this.
But also, sorry, can I pull on one thread from the very beginning of this conversation? What I did not love when I was writing that last essay, the Dave Chappelle one, though when I was reading it, I could sense the voice of myself. And I think a lot of my writing or whatever I create kind of is this. I don't know if this is a weakness of mine. It's not hard lines. This is true, because I like to dance between the nuance of everything. And it's like, well, it depends.
Yeah.
It's like, so coming from like the fitness world, for example, like if someone says like, oh, what's the best diet or what's the best training program? The true answer is always go, well, it depends. And that's a crappy answer to start with, isn't it? It sucks. Yeah. I struggled with I'm not having this like, this is it. This is my etching in the stone that I have right now. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, am I doing a disservice or am I not doing my best work if I'm not hard-nosed on that?
It might be more honest to be more nuanced, but it can be more useful to other people to have the hard-nosed,
really well said,
one-sided thing.
You bugger.
Brian Eno, the music producer, said that most of his job as a music producer is to just be a guy sitting in the studio with the band that has strong opinions. But he went on to say, for example, if he's producing an album by U2 and they're saying, oh, I'm not sure to go here. And he'll say something like, I think you need to go all balls out, make it aggressive as possible. You really need to do this. You really need to go balls out aggressive. And they'll go, what? No, it's not that kind of song. Not at all. And he'll just kind of go, okay, just glad I could help. No, because now you've just argued against it.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, what? It was like, no, that's his job. I'll be the guy to sit there with strong opinions. You can either take them if you're not sure where to go or argue against them if you're sure that they're not right. Either way, I've been useful to you. Yeah. So it's funny that every now and then I keep falling for this thing where I'm trying to decide, say, between a choice of two things, maybe whether to buy or to use. Maybe am I going to use this software or that software? Am I going to buy this thing or that thing? It looks like it's kind of down to these two choices. If I search the web for somebody writing an article, or these days it's more likely to end up on YouTube, they'll have a headline that sounds like it's going to help. Which should you choose, Ruby or Python for your next project? And goddamn, you know what it's always going to say at the end.
Yeah, it depends.
And I'm like, that was no use to me whatsoever.
Yes, exactly.
If you would have just said Python all the way, what you need is Python. That's the way to go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I just want the feeling like, I just want to make a decision, shit or get off the pot, right?
Yes.
It's time for you to get off the pot. Just help me just pick one and have some argument that I can tell a story that I can tell myself about why I chose Python instead of Ruby. Yeah. Even if it wasn't true, at least I've just decided now. But to just thank God I don't actually sit and watch the whole 10-minute video. I just jump to the last minute. But then I get to the last minute and say, man, it just all depends on what you want. It's really 50-50, so the choice is yours. I'm like,
does me still no good.
That was a waste of everybody's time. I think of that when writing is I will deliberately just pick one side. This is it. This is what you should do. And I'll know inside, like it's kind of doing it with a smirk because I know that I could just as easily tomorrow publish the opposite.
I like the concept of being able to argue both sides of an argument. And, oh man, I struggle with that. I love that you say that. You pushed a pressure point on me. Thinking of myself now, it's easy to sit on the fence, and fence sitters are useless or not as useful. So how do you suggest I figure that out in my head then? I'm writing an essay on, this is the identity I'm now. Okay, I'm going to update my now page, and it's going to be like, this is the identity and label that I'm now going to put upon myself for this next little while. And I've got to choose between, am I a black or am I a white? Am I a, do you know what I mean? Am I short or am I a tall or whatever it is that I'm choosing between? How do I choose the right one?
Based just on this conversation, it seems like the two little aha moments that made you stare off into space and think and go, oh my God, with this idea of the Trojan horse of people wanting to make more money, and you're going to help them clean up the garage first,
Yeah.
That story that you told me about, I mean, you could even turn it into, what's that word? I've never actually said it out loud, but I've seen it written. Fail. It's like taking, I don't even know how to say that word. ACROPHYAL, I think, where you turn something into a bit of a legend. It doesn't even need to be true anymore. You could take that story of the old client that called you saying, Chris, things aren't working out well money-wise for my training thing. And it's clear within minutes, his personal relationship, his relationship with his kid, all this stuff. And you're like, we need to look at this. That's your real problem here. You could turn that into a thing where it's like, it's not even really specifically him anymore. You could just kind of generic it a bit, generalize it a bit, whatever.
Not letting the truth get in the way of the story.
There we go. Thank you. Make that a good story. And I think it beautifully summarizes, like David Allen, the Fortune 500 CEOs, I go to we start on Sunday if they're home. It just becomes like part of the legend and the story that helps describe what you do.
Okay.
I can help you make more money, and that's what you come to me for, and that's what I advertise as. But because like that, your insight about people don't want to admit that they need relationship health, whatever, that they're lonely. They're going to hide the title of that book. The How to Make More Money. They're okay holding that book up on the train. So Chris will be the guy that you go to make more money, but if Chris is going to take you on as a client, he's going to address your life. And then that gives a rationale for you to, as a business expense, even at expense of time, to go meet with wise, insightful people around the world that have insights into life. You can have conversations about life, but do it through the lens of your practice. Where you're helping people make more money by helping them get their life in alignment. It can just kind of like these things all do go together, and your writing is a part of this, that you can write beautiful little articles about getting your soul aligned, and it won't seem like Chris has taken a left turn. It's all kind of connected to this thing. And in that sense, then the label of saying, I'm the guy that will help you make more money, and by doing that, we're going to help your life get straight. I think that's whatever label you would call that. I think that works for you.
I really appreciate you saying that, because I think one of the struggle points was let's say if I was to have 2 YouTube videos, and I was like, one of them could be like, here is how you triple your profit in 12 months, whatever, some crappy thing. And the other one, I could be like, why I don't believe in legacy. And I enjoy bouncing between those. And I could very much wake up one morning and be like, oh, I can totally jam on doing this business one today. And I feel like I'm doing good and it lights me up. But then I can wake up also many mornings and be like, yeah, I don't believe in legacy. And why are people putting so much onus on this thing? Like, I just don't, and then be able to riff on that as well. And I felt like there were just 2 starkly different worlds that I was bouncing between as well. And I was just like, whoa, like this is really non-complimentary, or with how somebody, like if someone is like, oh, what's Chris about? He talks about that, and he kind of talks about that. It's almost like from a marketing perspective, or like brand persona, it's like, wow, you are a mixed bag.
Right. Yeah, I don't see it that way.
Okay.
Because you don't want to go all Tony Robbins to say, I'm your life coach guy.
Yeah, like that makes me want to throw up in my mouth.
Right.
Like,
that's why Taki teased me on stage about like how I said no, and when I did say yes, I attached a high price to my yes to come to Noosa. And it's because I thought it was a bunch of life coaches. I didn't understand this term coach. I thought it was going to be a bunch of Bali sitting life coaches,
So do you know, Taki called me after you got back to him to say yes, called me and goes, oh my God, you would not believe this. told me, and I'm like, oh my God, that's incredible. This is going to be so epic. And he's like, all right, how are we going to afford it? Help me figure this out. And I was like, oh, this is so easy. Right? So then we like schemed, do you know what I mean, for like 20 minutes. I'm like, dude, just do this promotion and campaign and like it'll be done like super easily. And I remember having that conversation, being so pumped up about that.
Good.
Yeah.
That was sweet.
But yeah, sorry, life coaches.
No, that felt good to me too, because to me, there are plenty of things that I would say yes to for no money.
Yeah.
Right. And see, now having gone to Noosa and met that group, now if the same group said, would you like to come sit here for 3 days? I would happily pay my own expense to go, because I really like that group. The time it's like, I didn't know Taki. I didn't know the group. I'm like, bunch of coaches, millionaire, $1 million coaching. What the fuck is this shit? And I'm like, all right, if you pay me $30,000, I'll come.
Yeah.
And if you say no to that, fuck it, I don't care. Anyway, I was not into it at the time. But once I went, I can't emphasize enough. I came home and I raved to all my friends about this. I just had an amazing week. Because have I told you this thing already? Where to me, that my favorite moment, this is to me the legend of that room, is when, sorry, who's the alter ego effect guy?
Todd Herman.
When Todd Herman was on that screen and he said, you know, everybody's kind of sitting there and they're listening and sometimes doing this, but generally leaning back in their seats. And when he said, here's what I've done that to me have gotten the best results for my clients, everybody leaned forwards. And I went, that's badass. The thing that excited this room the most is how they can help their clients better. And that's what made everybody unanimously lean forward. Not, you know, here's how to double your income. Here's how you can help your client. So I was like, this is cool. I like these people now. That to me was a very telling moment.
That's so cool that you noticed that.
Because it's about being helpful. That's my problem. My only fear about living in Dubai is that there might be too many people that are just there for the money. I'm there for the anthropology and the convenient location. I think a lot of people think of Dubai as just synonymous with money. I'm here for the money. That's it.
That was very much my experience of that, especially because like the kind of worlds that I got into, like when I moved there, they were all financial advisors. Even though I was like personal trainer, I was like financial advisors, and my partner at the time, like his clients were so many of like financial advisors and everything like that. So it was very much that entire world that was really about the money, the glam, and I had one client that was a sheikh. I didn't know he was a sheikh at the time, which was really interesting. He'd rock up to the gym and he always had this beaten up Jeep Wrangler. Like it's just, it was falling apart. There was like tears through it. And anyway, and then he came up to me one time and was like, I've been watching you. Do I want to train with you? And it was like, amazing. And I remember the lesson that I initially first learned from Ahmad was don't judge people. And from the business context, we were sitting down, like having a consultation, and he's like, yeah, I want to train with you. And I was like, okay, great. Like, this is how much it'll be for one session a week. And he's like, I can train more. Like, I'd like to train more often. I was like, okay, well, this is how much it'll cost for 2 times a week. And he was like, I can do more. Like, I want to train more often with you. And we actually ended up training 4 double days a week. So 8 sessions in a week. So when I was...
Whoa, wait, does that mean like morning and night? How do you do 2
morning
sessions
and night?
a day?
Yeah. So he would come like 8 a.m. and then he'd come at like 4 p.m.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's like methodology behind it and like how you train different motor units and stuff like that. It was coming to it. Now, I did the disservice from him initially because...
The beat up Jeep.
He doesn't have money. So we'll train 1 time a week. Oh, okay. We can do that. And then I was like, can you afford twice a week?
Okay.
And then eventually, he was like, I can afford all the sessions, Chris, like primarily. And so we got to that. And then it was only a few weeks after that, he came walking into the gym and he threw me a set of car keys. And I caught the car keys, turned around, and it was an Aston Martin doing car key. And he's like, oh, my dad just bought me a new car for my 21st birthday. Do you want to take it for a drive? And I was like, yeah. And I walk out the front of the gym and it's this Aston Martin Vanquish, Pearl outside, all red leather interior. It's like, that was my first time driving like a car of that sort of caliber, but also like he had the license plate of like the royal family on it as well. So, which pretty much means you can do whatever you want on the roads and like the police aren't going to stop you. So like we got to Sheikh Zayed, the main road that kind of connects, and him just going like, let it go. And I was just like, wow, 200 something kilometers, do you know what I mean? On like a road, just like ripping down into it. And it was interesting for me because that world was so much money and like being exposed to it. And I remember the guy that lived above us on the penthouse, like he had multiple planes and everything like that, but he was, dude, that guy was sucking on the lemon the entire time. Like he was not a fun person to be around or to interact with. And that's when I was like, oh, maybe money isn't the thing. Maybe just maybe it's not the thing.
It's weird, the number of miserable rich people out there, you know? But on the other hand, it doesn't mean that, I mean, we also know lots of happy rich people, you know? So they're just, it's really disconnect. But see, that comes back to your integration of those two things. You know, I'm going to help you make more money, and we're going to do this by addressing your life as well at the same time. These things are connected. And I think you spreading that message would be fulfilling for you personally, even if 80% of your interest is the non-business stuff. Like so every now and then, it's kind of interesting to dabble in the business side of things. But come on, 80% of what you're interested in is this stuff. But those two things can be really integrated, not split personality, you know? I think, and you continually messaging that these things are integrated can be really healthy for people, because I think a lot of people do think they're just not. They're just like, I don't have time for a relationship. I gotta make money. I don't have time for my kids right now. I gotta make money. I don't have time for my health right now. I gotta make money. You're not gonna be happy to make money. You're not gonna be making money, especially, you know, like I described that guy whose face was full of wincing. There's some people that are just so not congruent that nobody wants to do business with them. You can just tell that they're a fucking mess. Like, I don't want to hire this guy as my anything. I don't even want this person to clean my house. They're freaking me out. They're issues. God, a lot of that. People who make money are usually just people that people like being around. They like to hire this person. They like who the person. Kind of like we were saying about how musicians. Yeah, you choose Taylor Swift as a person. Yeah, she had a country music hit. That's the first time you heard her, but now you like her as a person. You'll hire her into your ears. Yes. And so somebody likes who somebody is as a person.
You know, like, they're so true. It was just a few weeks ago, we took our eldest daughter to a string quartet that was just playing Taylor Swift songs. And it was amazing. It was in this cathedral in Brisbane, all candle light. It was awesome. It was really, really cool. And I was really into it because I think who Taylor Swift is and what she's doing is really cool. And there was that connection of like, oh, like, did I know her? I did not know her songs at all. Like, do you mean, like, and especially listening to them through a string quartet as well. I was like, I have no idea what's going on right now, but like, I'm enjoying this, but I think I was enjoying where it had come from previously as well. Yeah. I thought it was very cool.
In Your Music and People, I referenced somewhere in there a young artist who went and met 5 people in the music industry every single day and did that for 2 years. That was her.
Oh,
I didn't want to name her by name, but that was
really?
Swift, yeah. That was her start as a teenager.
Wow.
Is her manager took her around and they're like, all right, we're going to make you famous, but we're going to do this by, you're going to meet basically every single person in the US music industry over the next 2 years. And they took her to like 5, like just went every town, met every radio station director, every booking agent, every club owner, everybody, meet and greet, just 15 minutes each, whatever. And they just did that for 2 years. Pretty soon, Taylor Swift had like just personally met, whatever that is, 5 times 365, 15, maybe like, 4,000 people in the music industry had met her even for 5 minutes, Anyway, that was her. She put she put in the reps.
I respect that.
Me too. Yeah.
I
don't really like her music that much. I think I get mad because I studied music and I specifically studied pop songwriting. Her songs could be so much better, a little more crafted, a little, but oh well.
How much is music still a part of your life now?
Almost none, because I, do you ever get into something because it's like a nut you want to crack?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for 15 years.
I think all I've done is because it's another
right. Yeah. Same here. So it's like from the age of 14 to 29, I was trying to crack that nut of making great music, whether it's being better at guitar, writing a better song, even writing a better arrangement for a melody I had written. Now I want to make a good bass line and a good drum beat and good arrangements where it's interesting to listen to. I was cracking that nut for 15 years. Every day, kind of obsessed with it. I wake up just like with an idea of how I can do it better. And at the age of 29, that's when I started CD Baby, and I was just like, all right, like my music is now behind me. Now I'm cracking this nut for 10 years. How can I be a great helper to musicians? How can I help them sell music? For 10 years, I was just obsessed on that. And then, yeah, like I said, I guess it's my current thing is, I guess, just being a writer. But even the writing isn't the point in it, isn't it? And we say writing, but it really means thinking.
Yeah, well, the only way I can think is through writing.
Yeah.
Like if you were just like, Chris, go sit in that chair and just think through something, like I'm pretty useless unless I can type or like hand write something.
To organize. So I was thinking about even to be a good public speaker, needed a good writer.
Yeah.
But ultimately, even if you say, I want to be a great YouTube content creator, well, yeah, that starts with writing. You have to write good content. That whether you speak it into a camera, edit it full of flashy graphics, or stand up on stage and deliver it, or just write paper books or other things, it starts with the writing, which is just the thinking and putting aside the deeper time to think.
I think I'm joining two dots from here. I'm finding interesting. How do you think somebody becomes a good nutcracker then?
Ooh, obsessing. I don't mean like...
Can I ask you specifically?
Yeah.
How do you want to help your son become a good nutcracker?
Oh, well, shit. Hold on. Let's do the first ones. Do you own a bicycle right now?
No, I've got one.
Oh, okay. Then yes, you do. What do you mean? Do you own a bicycle? No.
Oh, sorry. I think, do you want one? Sorry.
Oh, no, sorry.
Yes,
I said, do you own a bicycle? No.
I don't own a car.
One.
My wife has a car, but I have a bicycle.
Oh, for real? Oh, cool. So if you were thinking of getting a bicycle and you heard, and if money was no object, whatever, and you heard that there's like a guy in Japan who's like this obsessive bicycle maker that's like every last detail and makes the world's most beautiful bicycles, you kind of want to get one of his bikes because the dude that made this suit.
Yeah.
Was recommended to me because he's just like an obsessive suit cutter. He's just like, he worked on Savile Row in London for a number of years until he basically graduated, or people consider Savile Row like the epitome of men's suit fashion wear. Like if you get a job on Savile Row, you've arrived. That is the end. That is the end of the rainbow. He worked on Savile Row for 5 years and said, I can do better. And so he like set up his own practice off of Savile Row. So that's who made the suit. And so the guy who recommended me to him is basically an aficionado of men's fashion. It said like, you want the best suit in the world, you go to Michael Brown. And so he actually had to refer me to Michael Brown for him to take me on as a client, and I went to his office many times as he measured me and multiple visits before he finally made this suit. But he's obsessed with lines and patterns or whatever. And so, I was obsessed with making the best music I can. Now I'm obsessed with my writing, not just the thinking itself, but then after I've had the thought, I want to put it in the most beautifully succinct writing I can. And now you can tell that I obsess over my words.
Yeah.
And I don't even care if it comes across like a little artificial, like it's not the same way I speak exactly. But I think it's beautiful. Like I'm prouder of it now.
I love it.
Thank you. I'm prouder of it.
Yeah.
I'm happier to like put a succinct thing like how to live into the world. I'm like, yeah, I did it. Okay.
I love that.
Thank you.
But where does that come from?
I think it's just like the bicycle maker, right? It's just like caring about the craft and then a personal challenge to yourself. Can I do it? Can I be a great musician? Can I write a beautifully catchy pop song? Can I make the world's most beautiful bicycle? Yeah, it's like a personal challenge to yourself to see if you can make, oh God, I guess maybe don't you start by being a fan of the craft first and being able to see the craft, like Quentin Tarantino being a fan of movies and then making his own movies and then making Pulp Fiction. Like I did it. I fucking made a masterpiece. I often think about that, like how that must have felt for him to make Pulp Fiction. Holy shit. What a movie. And it was unique. Like nobody had ever made anything like Pulp Fiction before. It was such a unique mix with the timelines and this and the scenes and then like, man, that was just a masterpiece. And
I remember watching Pulp Fiction probably far younger than I should have, simply because my dad really enjoyed the movie and thought it was fantastic as well.
And so and so it's like, if you appreciate the craft of what you're pursuing, and then you can tell, like, I did it, and you're pursuing that I did it joy. That's what I suspect. This is a fun question. Nobody's ever asked me this, and I don't think I've ever spoken about this before.
Because I think of we're talking about like nut cracking, and then I think of mastery, like what's behind mastery, but why is someone driven for mastery in a certain discipline or aspect? Like I think of when I was in Bali for a while, I used to train, like weight train, with a friend of mine, Michael Clinton. He's like a famous gold medalist swimmer, got a ton of gold Olympic medals. And I remember we were training in the gym heaps, and because the gym was kind of like my thing, do you know what I mean? Like I could push him, and that was kind of like my arena. And then one day he was like, come on, Chris, we've got to get in the pool. And then I remember going to the pool, and I remember like, I swim like a brick, and I was like gasping. I was like, oh my God, I am dead set about to drown right now. How far have we gone? And he's like, we've done 300 meters so far. Wow. Not far. But then watching him swim, I was blown away, because I was like, it was like poetry.
Yeah.
Like it was like, oh my God. And especially because I was just like, generally this just I was not pretty. And then I had this appreciation for it. And then talking to him about the amount of hours he spent in a pool watching this black line go up and down was incredible. And so then I think of like, okay, well then let's say us as fathers, how do we help instill an element of mastery and nut cracking or whatever it is for the next generation to go and do whatever they want to do and be able to become really good at it. And if I could try and sprinkle some more, do you know what I mean, Sivers flavoring on that, do it in a way in which is for them and not just like how everybody else has done it.
Yeah. I wonder if it's hearing myself speak what I just said 5 minutes ago, which I'd never said out loud before. Being able to see the craft, being able to see what makes a great swimmer, what makes a great bicycle, what makes a great film, being able to see that craft first. I'll bet it starts there, don't you think? To whet their desire.
Yeah.
I wonder if that word comes from wet, with W-H-E-T, to whet the appetite, to whet the desire.
Yeah.
Once you see that craft to make something that great, maybe it starts there. This is a fun subject. I've never talked about this.
Like I've thought about the analogy that I've used with clients sometimes, where it's like, you don't know what an A-grade paper is until you're shown what an A-grade paper is.
Yeah.
So you need to see what, like, this is a remarkable book. Read this. And then when they're able to read it, it's like the practice of learning good copywriting. Just sit there and handwrite, copying out. Do you know what I mean? Decades old, great copy. And it somehow, through like osmosis, gets inside of you, so then you can start doing it as well.
You know, sweet. I just think of myself loving movies like anybody loves movies. I mean, we all go to movies and love movies, right? Everybody loves movies. And it was just a couple weeks ago that I was meeting with a guy that does film soundtracks. And so he's a musician. And so we were talking about music. And then when he asked me a couple questions about film, I said something like, I said, oh, well, you know, this movie. I said, The Double Life of Veronique by this Polish filmmaker, something. And when he told me the meaning of that, he said, I read an interview with the director. He said, do you know the symbolic meaning of that film? I said, no. And he said, when that first character died, and then like the story continued in France, he said, the director said that was symbolic of him leaving Poland to move to France to make film. That was the death of his life in Poland to begin his life in France. And I started like crying a little bit as he said this. And later he said, dude, I think you like films more than you're letting on. I said, well, we all do. He said, no, I think you really like films. I went, I never thought about it. I guess I do. I guess I probably do like them more than most people. But I've been thinking about with my kid. And then my kid just said it last week. We were in the car. I didn't tell him that story from 2 weeks ago. And we were sitting in the car and I was telling him, oh, no, sorry. We were watching, this came up later in the car, but I was watching a movie with him. I said, okay, pay attention to this next part. It was the movie Moonrise Kingdom. Do you know it? Wes Anderson?
I don't know.
So I said, okay, pay attention. The next 2 minutes are like 2 of my favorite minutes in all of cinema history. And he goes, Dad, I love how much you love movies. I was like,
That's cool.
But yeah, helping somebody see the craft first. Like you said that you were reading a book about story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've read like 4 or 5 of those books. I love them all.
Yeah.
Every time I read a book about story, I get so excited. I make great stories like that. Yeah, this is a really fun subject. This has actually got me kind of more charged up on a subject than I have been in a long time. Like how to get that nut-cracking desire to master something. Yeah, I think it starts with seeing that ideal.
Yes. There's
A beautiful bicycle,
There's
a
an
beautiful...
inspiration of, oh my God, a beautifully tailored suit, what it does for a man when he's wearing it. Like there is something that, what's his name? Michael Brown?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I find that really cool. Like the only thing I watch with my oldest daughter is documentaries, or like we've been watching a few like sports documentaries recently. And because what I found very fascinating is like, why does he, whoever want to be the fastest 100-meter sprint? Why does he want to be doing the best Formula One race driver? What has driven that person to be able to just be like, I am like a guitarist, for example. Like I grew up listening to classical Spanish guitar. Like I love listening like to the Gypsy Kings or something like that. There's one Gypsy Kings song called Inspiration that I just like love listening to. And listening to what he does on the guitar, I'm just like blown away by it. Like, how does somebody even do that? Yeah. But for someone to be there to just have their body do that and look like it just, I find that really fascinating.
Yeah.
You've gotten so good at this thing that is just because you love it.
Yeah. A quick aside. I also love the Gypsy Kings. Google invited me to an event once, right after my first follower dancing guy TED Talk. They asked me to come give that talk at the conference.
Yeah.
The first night there was just kind of bullshitty this networking event, a bunch of people, their little cocktail napkin and drinks, blah, 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 blah. Probably about 100 people just mulling around, just talking. Some background music, they had hired some band to play, and we were sitting there, and pretty soon I'm like, sounds a lot like the Gypsy Kings. I'm like, it's fucking Gypsy King. Playing fucking background music. All these bullshit marketing people from Google are chit-chatting. The fucking Gypsy Kings are playing to an apathetic audience. And once I realized that, I was like, excuse me.
Laugh for me.
I'm going to listen to the Gypsy Kings for a while. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
I just like sat by the rest of the stage and just sat there for half an hour.
Oh, that's
being like the only guy just sitting and listening to the Gypsy Kings. It's like amazing. And I mean, this close to just sitting by the stage. There's like that flamenco style guitar. Oh my God. Anyway, I guess maybe then the pursuit. And to connect to Tangent, that was 2009. Then in 2017, 8 years later, I get an email from a woman. She says she loves my website and loves my writing. I was single, still am. She's got a website, Erica LeMay. I look at her website. She's one of the top aerial acrobat artists in the world. Won the gold medal for Canada when she was 9 years old or something like that. Wow. And is known as just like the best in her field by far. And it's a very physical thing. I mean, she holds herself up by ribbons that would be like suspended from there and would be like 6 stories in the air, just with the muscles in her arms flying in the air. And her specialty is her legs in the air, like as if she's walking, but like upside down. It's like the core control that it takes to do that stuff. And kind of a contortion at the same time. We were romantic for about 4 or 5 months. And so I got to know her very, very well. And she just had that drive ever since. She grew up the only daughter of 2 farmers in Quebec. And they just there was a local ballet school. So when she was 5, she wanted to go to ballet. She went to ballet and she said, from my very first lesson, as soon as I got there, she said, I just knew I wanted to be the greatest in the world at this. That's at 5. And I don't think she's just fictionalizing her past. I think it's just like, she just has this drive, kind of like, you've got 4 daughters. You see these like different traits. Your oldest daughter's drive to read. My kid doesn't have that. I can't make him read. He'll watch YouTube for hours and he'll watch educational videos on YouTube about Indonesian history, but will not read. And it's just funny how some people just have this DNA drive to do something and not another thing.
So is there
wait, I forgot to tell you together. 2017, as I was getting to know Erica the acrobat, she talked about this party at Google once where it turns out she was, just like they hired the Gypsy Kings, they also hired Cirque du Soleil, and she was in Cirque du Soleil at the time.
Oh, wow.
Or she was, her deal,
So she was performing.
she was performing at the same event I was performing at.
Oh, wow.
And I did see the acrobats in the background, but by then I was engaged with conversation at dinner. And it was just that was a funny thing to tie it together. It's like realizing that we were at the same event 7 years before meeting.
That's really cool.
She's one of the great loves of my life. She was wonderful. Like, we didn't work out couple-wise, but when we broke up, she kind of dumped me. She did dump me. But it was okay because I had already kind of come to the conclusion I didn't want to be with her as much as I wanted to be her.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Like, she is a bit of a role model to me.
Oh, that's really cool.
For the care that she puts into everything. And yeah, she's amazing. She was super inspiring and also kind of like brought out the best in me. You know what I mean? Some people do that to you.
I think what I was thinking just before was, is there only a certain amount of nutcracking that you can actually help instill? You know, doing that as fathers, is there only, do you know what I mean, like, your son, you're saying like he's not like, do you mean driven to read right now? Well, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Or like, do you mean if somebody isn't at 5 years old saying, I want to be the world's best at this, I don't think,
they're not feeling.
we haven't necessarily failed them, have we? Like, I hope not.
Yeah. I mean, you've got 4 times more parenting experience than me, but my favorite baby book I read was Brain Rules for Baby by John Medina.
Yeah, I've read
You know
that.
it?
Yeah.
Okay. You're the only person I know that it's also read that book.
Yeah.
At the conclusion, he said, if you take away only one thing from this book, it's that your child will thrive if they feel safe. That helping your kid feel safe is the most important thing you can do as a parent. It overrides everything else I've talked about. They should feel safe. By the way, it's a cliche. Look behind you. The Japanese or Chinese looking inspectors in their suits, they've been inspecting that boat. So it's almost a cliche stereotype. They come in wearing their suits and they were like discussing the boat and pointing like engineers. See, look, they're like, pointing, inspecting, taking pictures.
Photos.
Yeah, let's get a record.
They're really into it.
Yeah. And out of boat building. Wouldn't that be funny to find out they're like engineers, boat engineers from China? That okay, so he says at the end of that book, the most important thing is to help your kid feel safe. I wouldn't be surprised if for mastery, it's a similar thing to just like give them the environment where they can master whatever they want to master.
Yeah.
And it can be an emotional environment. So maybe instead of like, it's 3 o'clock, you have to do this. It's 4 o'clock, you got to clean your room. It's 5 o'clock, you need to do this. It's 6 o'clock, you need to do the dishes. Maybe it's just a matter of just like letting them dive into something undistracted, teaching them to focus or helping them be in an environment that encourages focus instead of encouraging distraction or encouraging the switching of multitasking or mode switching.
I feel that so much when you say that, because I think I very much grew up with like,
oh, really?
And that has been so much of my life. Into a direct example, and now for the past few weeks, this new company's been very interesting because it's only 6-7 months since starting. And already it's like, oh, the team has got this. Like everything's running really well. And I very much saw running the last company, it was a case of like, I was finding problems to solve, which were problems that did not need solving. And so, for example, like I try and do like at the end of every month, I try and just like distill like, how did the month go? What have I actually learned? And actually publicly shared a little bit of it. And my number one lesson for the last month was finding the perfect answer to the wrong question. And it was just, like, no, Chris, sit back, relax, let the team do the things. I don't have to be there. Like everything's running right now, like this entire week. And I was like, hey, this week, like I'm out, I'm gone. I'll check in for a couple of messages, maybe for 15 minutes in the morning, but that's it. And so for me, it's actually been really difficult, like personally, because I've wanted to do one thing to the next and go from one. And if I'm not working hard and if I'm not like striving, am I worthy of things going well? I've really struggled with that previously as well. So I love you being able to do that. And I think what's so much is such an amazing gift that your son is able to receive from you is here is this open space and we can just do whatever you want and go deep as as you want as well within this. I think that is, oh God, like I felt through so much of my adult life, almost a time pressure. Like I have to do this, so then I can do this, and then I can do this, and then I go to sleep, and I go to sleep on time, so I can wake up early, and then I do it. And it's just like one thing, and then I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm striving and I'm achieving, I'm doing all of this, but I didn't, what I came to term, like I didn't have a healthy relationship with time.
Okay.
I appreciate you saying that.
So you think that that didn't work for you? That you were doing it that way, but that approach was kind of working against you?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. It can work.
I was good at getting shit done.
Then what was bad about it?
I didn't enjoy it.
Okay.
I'm really good at bleeding through the forehead and like getting through it. But then there was and I think I've gotten much, much better at this, like, and then being able to, oh no, like I can enjoy the process and I can slow down and seeing where my faults are and hopefully being able to do somewhat of a job to be able to fix those. I think I've gotten a little bit better at it. Not perfect.
It's funny, one of them.
Sorry, can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
Because I literally said to my wife yesterday, I was like, we're driving to the airport and I was like, oh, I feel so guilty that I'm going to spend a couple of days flying New Zealand. I get to hang out and chat with Derek and I feel guilty that it wasn't like productive. Like I wasn't like, like it's productive, but it wasn't like I'm doing this to achieve this. Like there's that process. And it was really interesting watching those thoughts go through my head and being able to then like try and, it was Todd Herman that told me once to like when journaling, journal in the third person. So then you create like a subject-object relationship. So like, Chris, like, so for example, I was like, Chris is feeling guilty. Chris is feeling guilty because of blah, blah, blah. Chris shouldn't feel guilty. So it's like if I was talking to myself.
Right.
And so I found that really interesting, like those thoughts going through my head and then being like, that is completely irrational. Like that is not useful, those thoughts at all.
I like that. And it's funny that the judgment of whether you should be doing that or not has to come from personal experience. Too often, I think we hear about some successful person who says, this way is good, that way is bad. And we go, well, this way is good and that way is bad. That's what the rich guy says.
Yeah.
But one of the most effective, productive, growing, most growth-oriented times of my life was at college when I was at Berklee College of Music in Boston, where I was doing music from 7 a.m. to midnight, and things were scheduled down to, the hour to 90-minute shifts. It was like, okay, from 8 to 9:30, I'm going to do this. From 9:30, I eat for 15 minutes, and then at 9:45, I go to something, I go to this class. From 12 to 1, I work on my finger exercises. From 1 to 3, I'm in a composition class. From 3 to 5, I work on my singing. From 5 to 7, I do and almost every day for 3 years of my life was scheduled like this. I had like one of those daily planners, the executive planners, where every day gets a whole page. And had my little mechanical pencil, because handwriting music, that's what you use a mechanical pencil for all the eighth notes and the quarter notes and all that kind of crap. And so I'd use the same mechanical pencil in my weekly executive planner, and every day was scheduled down to the hour. And that was the first and last time I'd ever done that. But damn, it was really effective. And I learned a ton and I grew a ton, and I was in good health too, because I would like write in for like, 7 to 8, I'm going to go running around the Charles River or whatever. And even exercise was scheduled in there. Everything was scheduled in. And ever since I got out of school, I haven't lived to that micro level since. Sometimes I miss it. Sometimes I feel like that really worked for me.
How do you do it now? How do you know what to do?
Like I'm like a frog on a lily pad. I had to wake up and I'll just do this thing until I feel like not doing it. I'll jump to another lily pad.
That's incredible.
I guess.
No, it is. For me to hear that, it is.
It's funny. I guess, we said like shifting gear. For 2 years of writing Useful Not True, it was like, this is my thing. Everything else can wait. I know there are other things I want to do. Yes, I want to learn Chinese. Yes, I want to I want to get a will sorted in case I die.
Yeah.
All of that's going to wait. I just need to finish this book first. Because at first I thought it was going to be 6 months. I'm going to work on this book for 6 months. I didn't know it was going to be 2 years. So it's like, nope, everything else is going to wait. And I would just like the getting things done methodology. Everything else would just get pushed into a projects or a someday folder.
Yeah.
Everything else can wait. Yeah, I don't know. I can see the benefit of looking at your projects the way that almost that your university would say, here's your course load. You're taking these 9 courses.
Here's the curriculum.
Here's the curriculum. You're going to have 4 courses a day, and you're going to do this for 90 minutes, and there's the next actions you're going to be taking in this class this day, and on Wednesday you'll do it again with these actions. I could see doing that with our projects and just scheduling them all in. Actually, that's kind of what Erica the acrobat did. She was very driven in all aspects of her life. That she married an Italian guy and moved to Milan. And so she said, I need to be not just fluent in Spanish, I need to be perfect in Spanish. I want to have a perfect Milanese accent where nobody will be able to tell that I am not from Milan. And she did it. Everybody thought that she was from Milan. By the way, I don't use my phone for much. I am so thankful for alarms.
Oh, good.
No, that was I need to get my kid from school in a minute. But I really like alarms because then you can just put it out of your head.
Exactly. You trust. Think about. Yeah.
You know, it's like, we'll just talk until it tells me not to. But at one point, while she and I were together, she realized that she wanted to write a book about her life. And she didn't know how to type, or she typed like this.
Yeah.
She said, I need to learn touch typing. So I helped her find a program that was good for her. And she's like, okay, every day for 45 minutes a day, I will practice my touch typing with my finger exercises. And she did it. Now she's a fluent touch typer. Oh. She just made it happen. I was just like, I just love her, that approach to life. There was a fun matter. As I said, I love her approach to life. I was like, yeah, actually, I do love her. She's so wonderful.
That's so beautiful.
She was such an important person in my life.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I think she and I would have made a bad romantic couple in the long term. I'm so glad we met. Guys, the Chinese engineers looking at the boat.
Yeah.
I saw them looking at another boat, so I interrupted to ask. I said, I got to ask, are you boat engineers? And they said, no, they're from a university in China. That they said that New Zealand sent a Maori-style boat to Shanghai to an exhibit or whatever, and so he was explaining that to them. But
they are boat nutcrackers.
But they're from
That's really cool.
The university. So anyway, I don't know. God, we opened so many fun tangents.
I wrote so many good ones.
Should we meet up again?
You just tell me when suits you.
Okay.
Tomorrow or the next day. It's really fun.
Okay, cool. Let me check with my kid.
Please do. Did you see Deadpool? Was it good?
It's okay.
Okay.
It was funny.
Okay.
It was, I almost never drink.
Yeah.
But I went to one of those little cinemas that has beer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had 2 beers at the start of the film. And then I got the popcorn and it was really salty. Oh. So I was like, I haven't done this also in years. I went back to the snack bar and I got a bag of M&Ms, mixed them in with the salty popcorn.
Choice, Derek.
And it's like 2 beers, salted M&Ms, salty. I was like laughing at a stupid Marvel movie.
Love it.
Like, it was just 2 hours of, I hadn't done that in a long time. So
I'm a big Guy Ritchie fan. I got to watch not the whole thing, but his recent video.
What's
it? Film. It's on World War II.
Oh, interesting. I don't know. Okay.
It's really good, but it's like gory, but just really well done. I just love the way he depicts stories. Anyway, it was like 45 minutes we started landing because I was just thinking in my head for the first like hour or whatever it was on the actual flight. And I was like, oh, let's see what movies are on. And I was like, oh my God, here it is.
Aww.
And I started watching it and I couldn't finish it. So
yeah, that's so frustrating
on the way back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, I guess let's take these off.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to send you, this was, like I said, it was kind of an afterthought as I was dashing at the door, but.
If you've enjoyed this episode and it's vibed with you, then make sure that you hit subscribe, whether you're on the YouTube or on the podcast. And importantly, if there is any guests that you want me to have on the show or specific questions or topics that you want me to be able to cover for you, simply put it into the YouTube comments or send me an Instagram DM. That way I can make sure you're getting the most out of actually being here.